Hello, Jin Young, says a girl with a literal stone for a face. My absolute rule of life is to treat all women like stones. Hello? I respond, looking at her. This is my unwavering, unchanging belief. Back in elementary school, the number of times I got rejected by girls was exactly 20, starting with girls bluntly telling me, I don't like you. Every single time I confessed, the rejections were always painfully different, with some girls crying out, "Wah, Park Jin-young confessed to me." Young, innocent, and deeply hurt, I was left utterly speechless as tears streamed down my face. Having completely lost my confidence, I curled up on the floor of my bedroom in despair. That was when my imaginary friend, Jason, first appeared to comfort me. Try thinking of all girls as stones. That was the life-changing advice Jason gave me. From then on, I sat in my pajamas and practiced strict mind control, repeating to myself over and over that girls are just stones. After repeating this for years, by around my first year of middle school, the mind control actually worked. I started seeing every single girl as a literal block of stone. Ah, right, Jin-young. But wait, Jason's second piece of advice was, "Hey, are you free after school today? I need help with some studying," says a stone-faced classmate. That second piece of advice was, don't start spinning happy fantasies. Just because a girl smiles at you or suggests hanging out after school, do not delude yourself into thinking she actually likes you. Sorry, I'm a bit busy today, I reply coldly. That is, if you don't want to get hurt again. Ever since I started viewing girls as mere rocks, talking to them has become so much easier. Well, it makes perfect sense. After all, you don't need to harbor any complicated feelings toward a stone. Right, Jason? I ask, turning to my trusted companion. Agreed, replies Jason, who has now grown into an incredibly buff, mustachioed man in a white tank top. But I'm a little worried that you'll never be able to date anyone at this rate, Jason adds, leaving me completely speechless. What are you talking about? I'd already decided to give up on that, remember? I remind him as a tiny version of Jason sits on my shoulder. I guess you're right, he concedes. I'd rather stay like this than risk being called a loser or a creep ever again. Well, as long as you're fine with it, Jason says. Yeah, I respond as I walk out of the school gates, completely unaware of a phone lying on the pavement behind me. Hey! A voice suddenly calls out, catching my attention. It's yours, right? Asks a girl, holding up my lost phone. A small puff of smoke appears as I slowly turn around to face her. Huh? My eyes widen in complete and utter shock.
She looks at me with a puzzled expression. Why doesn't she look like a stone?
This is bad. It has been so long since I actually saw a girl's real face. What do I do? First, stay calm. I've got to stay calm. Why aren't you saying anything? She asks softly. Wow. But she is. Maybe it's just because I haven't seen a real girl in such a long time. You're really pretty, I blurt out directly to her face. As soon as the words leave my mouth, a cold sweat breaks out on my forehead as I realize what I just said. Huh? She gasps, her cheeks flushing bright red in pure shock. Thank you? She stammers, completely bewildered, while I wave my hands frantically in embarrassment. Thanks for picking it up, and sorry, I yell, snatching my phone and bolting away as fast as my legs can carry me. Left standing entirely alone, she can only wonder, what just happened? You idiot! I scream at myself in frustration as I run down the street. Did you seriously just tell a girl you just met that she's pretty? This is seriously bad. What if people start talking about it and rumors begin to spread? I mean, I thought it was pretty sweet and charming, actually, Jason chimes in, looking quite pleased. As if. No way, I moan, burying my face in my knees on my bedroom floor. Don't be so down, buddy, Jason tries to comfort me. This is weird. Why is she the only one who doesn't look like a stone? I wonder aloud. There's no way to know for sure, so what do you plan on doing now? Jason asks. If you just leave it be, weird rumors might start spreading. I remain silent, dreading the possibilities. You like me? Whoa, that's so creepy. The painful memories of my elementary school rejections begin to flash before my eyes. Will something like that happen to me again? A dark, heavy gloom washes over my mind as the trauma of my childhood rejections resurfaces. You trained so hard to avoid this. What if something like that happens again? Jason asks, his face filled with concern. I'm so doomed, I groan, curling up tightly in a corner of my room. Jason, punch! Jason shouts, delivering a massive blow to snap me out of my negative spiral. Oof, I gasp as the punch lands. Don't lose your mind, I tell myself, clutching my head in frustration. I need to stay calm and think of a plan. Even if you don't know why she doesn't look like a stone, Jason says, trying to offer a practical solution, you just have to make sure you don't run into her, right? You're in different classes, Jason points out, so if you hide well, you probably won't run into her. I pause, realizing he has a point. That's true. Jason is absolutely right. As long as I actively avoid her, I won't have to get flustered or lose my cool ever again. Oh, what? We meet again? She calls out cheerfully, stepping right up to me in the school hallway. You remember me, right? My eyes widen in complete shock as a cold sweat breaks out. I can't believe it. I already ran into her. What do I do, Jason? I scream in my head, completely panicking. Calm down, Jason replies coolly. Just talk naturally. Who is he? Her stone-faced friend asks curiously. Well, she stammered. I take a deep breath. Yeah, I just have to act the exact same way I do with any other stone girl. He's the one who said I was pretty yesterday, she blurted out, causing my heart to skip a beat in absolute horror. Whoa, no way, that's insane! The stone girl shouts in astonishment, while she giggles and adds, I was just as surprised, you know? So, she says, leaning in closer with a playful smile. Am I pretty today as well? She asks, tilting her head and striking a cute, dazzling pose right in front of me. Sunwoo, are you nuts? What are you doing? Her friend laughs, teasing her while she just giggles. Haha, what's the big deal? As I stand there completely frozen. Eh? She gasps as I suddenly turn on my heel and sprint away as fast as my legs can carry me. Smart move, Jason nods approvingly. I agree. If I had stayed there any longer, I definitely would have gotten dragged into even more trouble. That laugh of hers was definitely to make fun of me. There's absolutely no way I'm falling for that. I steel my resolve and tell myself over and over, don't you dare start getting any weird hopes up. What the heck? She mutters, looking totally bewildered as she watches me flee. Regardless of what she thinks, from now on, I am never running into her again. But avoiding her is easier said than done. Looking across the schoolyard, she stands out way too much among all the other literal stones. Oh hey, she calls out cheerfully, turning her head to wave. I sigh inwardly. Well, this really can't be helped. Ah, she utters as I immediately dart behind some bushes. Since I can't walk around peacefully, my only option is to avoid her every single time we cross paths. Whether she tries to say hello in the hallway or just H as we pass each other on the street, I instantly dodge and shield my face, leaving her completely ignored. Left standing alone time and time again, she can only look on with an increasingly annoyed and deeply puzzled expression. But this constant dodging is absolutely exhausting, I groan as I walk home after school. You did good, Jason encourages me, while I sigh, I need to go home and think of another plan. Seriously, how did things end up like this? I mutter in despair, with a tiny, concerned Jason sitting quietly on my shoulder. Hey, a voice suddenly commands from right behind me. I freeze as cold sweat pours down my face, completely terrified. Whoa, you scared me, I yell, jumping back in absolute fright. She looks at me, unamused, and asks dryly, did I startle you? Why on earth do I keep running into her? Until I can actually think of a solid plan, I have to avoid her as much as humanly possible. Are you running away again? She asks, her eyes narrowing as she steps closer. You look away when we make eye contact and you literally run off whenever you see me, she points out, looking hurt and annoyed. Did I do something wrong to you? You're really weird, you know, she tells me bluntly, leaving me trembling and breaking into a cold sweat. Oh, great. Now she has a completely wrong, creepy idea about me. I have to think of something to say to clear this up, and I have to do it fast. The thing is, I stammer, desperately trying to find the words under her intense, skeptical gaze. The reason I acted like that I hesitate as the memory of her standing out so brilliantly among all the blocky stone girls flashes through my mind. Because all other girls look like stones to me, except for you, I blurt out honestly, our figures silhouetted against the glowing sunset. She stands completely frozen, her eyes wide with shock as my bizarre confession hangs in the quiet evening air. A tense silence falls over the street as I stand there sweating bullets, absolutely terrified of how she is going to react to what I just said. What did I just say? I scream internally, burying my face in my hands. Even Jason can only cringe and groan, she gasps softly, a sudden look of realization washing over her face. Slowly, her surprised expression softens, and a gentle, amused smile spreads across her face. What's your name? She asks, stepping right up to me. Huh? I stammer, completely taken aback. Park Jin-young? Before I can even register what is happening, she reaches out and gently grabs my red tie, pulling me slightly closer. Leaning in close, she looks up at me with a playful, sultry gaze and whispers, what you just did was flirting. My heart beats wildly and my mind goes completely blank as her words sink in, leaving me utterly speechless. When I was just a child, crying in my room after being rejected, my imaginary friend Jason appeared to give me some crucial advice. "Next time, make sure you say hi back," she calls out cheerfully, waving as she walks away. I can only stare after her. First advice, treat all girls like stones. That has officially failed. Second piece of advice, don't start spinning happy fantasies. I clutch my chest as my heart races out of control. My face flushes bright red as I stand there shaking in pure embarrassment and excitement. That second piece of advice has completely failed too. With a playful, mischievous expression, she looks down at her phone and sticks her tongue out as a glowing heart notification pops up on the screen. In an instant, a whole lifetime of happy fantasies flashes before my eyes, from a sweet marriage proposal to picking out baby names, raising a rebellious teenager, and finally holding hands as an elderly couple on our deathbeds. What a mess, Jason sighs as he delivers a firm blow to the back of Jin Young's head. It's been 5 full years since I've seen an actual girl's face up close, Jin Young thinks, clutching his red cheek. I guess it's only natural that I'm losing my mind. Sitting on his bedroom floor across from Jason, Jin Young admits, "Anyway, the keep avoiding her like a dog strategy won't work anymore. What do we do now?" "In cases like this, the ultimate goal is what matters most," Jason explains, pointing his finger dramatically. Jin Young asks, "The goal?" To which Jason replies, "Exactly. Once you started viewing women as stones, you stopped feeling anything when you looked at them," Jason explains. "That's how you were able to stay so composed." "And you stopped getting hurt by women too," Jason adds, as the painful memory of Jin Young's childhood rejection resurfaces. "But then this girl appears, the one who doesn't look like a stone," Jason continues, "and that's where the side effect of treating everyone like rocks kicks in. You have absolutely no immunity to a real girl's face," Jason tells Jin Young bluntly. "It was the perfect storm for your inner loser to come crawling out." Jin Young grumbles back, "Calling me a loser is a bit much." "But you're right," Jin Young sighs, looking down. "If things keep going like that, the past is just going to repeat itself." "There's a way," Jason interrupts. "Look, all you need to do is keep your cool in front of her," Jason advises, making Jin Young perk up with a start. Walking down the school hallway, Jin Young tries his best to look cool, but instead ends up squinting his eyes and baring his teeth in a terrifying, strained grimace. Seeing his bizarre, intense expression from down the hall, Sunwoo can only stare back with a deeply puzzled and slightly sweating expression. "Oh my gosh, Jin Young is totally staring at you," Sunwoo's friend squeals in excitement. "No way," Sunwoo stammers while her friend asks in confusion. "Huh? Isn't he just glaring?" "Hey Jason, what was this plan called again?" Jin Young whispers as he squints. "The desensitization strategy," Jason answers from his shoulder. "But why is your face doing that?" "I just can't see very well," Jin Young replies. "So the plan was to keep looking at her face, since she's not a stone, until I get used to it?" Jin Young asks. "Right, but do something about your expression," Jason advises. "At least try to smile." "Got it," Jin Young says as he forces an extremely creepy, wide-toothed grin onto his face, looking absolutely psychotic. Sunwoo stands frozen in the hallway, her face turning pale and then red with pure shock and alarm at Jin Young's terrifying smile. "Whoa, Jin Young just smiled at you," her friend yells excitedly. "No way," Sunwoo stammers, completely speechless. "Does he seriously think I can't see him staring?" Sunwoo wonders, looking over her shoulder. "I mean, why else would he be so obvious about it?" "But she shouldn't be able to see me clearly from that distance," Jin Young reasons, his face still frozen in that horrific grin. "Do I even need to worry about my expression?" Mini Jason comments. "I'm the one who's uncomfortable watching this." "Let's head back. If you keep staring, people will get the wrong idea," Jason warns, prompting Jin Young to quickly turn on his heel. "Okay," Jin Young agrees. "Hey Sug-young, do you know who that guy is?" Sunwoo asks. "Of course I do," Sug-young replies cheerfully. "Jin Young is actually pretty popular with the girls." "Oh, really?" Sunwoo asks, intrigued. "Yeah, so a few of them tried to talk to him," Sug-young explains as they walk down the hall. "But apparently he has zero interest in girls at all," Sug-young reveals, causing Sunwoo's eyes to widen in surprise. "He's not interested in dating, he just does his own thing," Sug-young explains, as Jin Young sits calmly studying. "The cool guy type?" Sunwoo asks, to which Sug-young adds, "Well, that's actually why the girls like him." "But why?" Sunwoo asks. Sug-young smiles playfully and teases, "Since Jin Young was staring at you, did you start getting interested in him too?" "What?" Sunwoo gasps, her face flushing pink. "No, it's just," she stammers defensively. Sunwoo remembers their encounter at sunset when they stood face to face on the street under the glowing sky. There's something a bit bothersome about him, Sunwoo thinks, a playful, knowing smile spreading across her face. Back in the classroom, Jin-young leans against the lockers. No matter how much I think about it, I don't think this plan is very good, he tells Jason. What makes you say that? Jason asks. The core of the plan is to get used to her face so I can keep my composure, right? Jin-young asks. Right, Jason nods. To do that, I'd have to follow her around and stare at her. But that's just being a freaking stalker, Jin-young grumbles, sweating with worry. It'll make me look even weirder. So it's either a loser or a stalker. This is a tough one, Jason muses. Jin-young snaps back in frustration. Do you want to die? So what if I just keep looking at a photo of her instead? Jin-young proposes. Oh, Jason replies. Wouldn't that be better than staring in person? If I can find her Insta or something. That sounds like an excellent idea, Jason says, giving an enthusiastic thumbs up. Right? Jin-young smiles. Then hurry up and go ask her, Jason prompts. In person? Jin-young groans, face planting onto his desk. What else were you going to do? Jason asks. Lurking on her Insta from the shadows is even more of a loser move. Jin-young sighs. Seriously, you're too much. Stealing his courage, Jin-young approaches Sunwoo in the hallway, holding out his phone with a nervous grin. Could I maybe get your Insta handle? Sunwoo stands in the middle of the school corridor, surprised by his sudden request. Oh, sure, Sunwoo chirps with a bright, playful wink, making Jin-young's heart do a flip. Open the app, I'll type it in for you, Sunwoo says, reaching out. Okay, Jin-young stammers, thinking this is going surprisingly smoothly. Let's see, Sunwoo says softly as she begins typing her username on Jin-young's phone. She stares at the phone screen for a moment, a sudden look of complete bewilderment washing over her face. Huh? She mutters. Hey, Jin-young, did you seriously just make this account? Sunwoo asks, holding the phone and looking up at him with a grin. Huh? Oh yeah, why? Jin-young responds in confusion. Since I don't usually use social media, I made one in a hurry, Jin-young explains, sweating nervously. Is there a problem? Pooh ha 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 ha! Sunwoo burst into loud, uncontrollable laughter, clutching her stomach. Jin-young panics, screaming in his head, why is she laughing? The very first person you came to find after making an account was me? Sunwoo laughs, pointing her finger at Jin-young. Jin-young stands there, completely dumbfounded and frozen as the reality of his actions begins to sink in. Wait, it is? Jin-young screams internally, his eyes widening in absolute horror as he realizes how incredibly obvious his feelings now look. This is hilarious! Ha ha ha! Seriously! Sunwoo continues to laugh. Jin-young groans internally in pure despair. I was way too blinded by the goal. I should have thought this through before acting. What do I do, Jason? Jin-young screams in absolute panic. Jason can only look back with a cold sweat, stating bluntly, you're screwed. Jason! Jin-young yells inside his head. Jin-young stammers in absolute panic, waving his hands. I mean, that's true, but I just happened to run into you right after making it. I couldn't really help it. He despairs internally, realizing his inner loser is starting to leak out. Sunwoo placates him with a playful smile, saying, okay, while Jin-young stands wide-eyed in surprise. Leaning in close with a captivating, teasing smile, Sunwoo holds up her phone and asks, aren't you curious about my number 2? Sweating profusely, Jin-young's mouth hangs open as he stammers, Sunwoo bursts into laughter, playfully hitting Jin-young's chest. Pooh ha ha, I'm kidding, just kidding. Your reactions are so funny, she teases, leaving Jin-young completely bewildered. Handing his phone back to him, Sunwoo cheerfully says, I followed you, here's your phone back, to which Jin-young can only mutely reply, yeah. As she walks away down the corridor, Sunwoo calls back, make sure to like my stuff, see ya, leaving Jin-young standing frozen in the middle of the hallway. Jin-young stands alone, staring blankly down the empty corridor in complete silence. A film strip of his wild imagination plays out, depicting a romantic proposal, picking out baby names, and bickering with a rebellious teenager. Mini Jason pops up on Jin-young's shoulder, scolding him, stop replaying the film, pulling Jin-young back to reality as he mutters, ah. Later that evening, Sunwoo lies on her bed in her room, kicking her legs as she browses her phone. Looking at her screen, Sunwoo bursts out laughing, wondering, haha, what even is this? She stares at Jin-young's profile picture, a poorly angled, extremely awkward selfie, and giggles, his taste in photos is so bad. Meanwhile, Jin-young is fast asleep in his pajamas when his phone suddenly lights up on the pillow next to him. A notification pops up on the screen, revealing that Jang Sunwoo liked his photo at 12:19 a.m. The next day at school, Soo-gyung's eyes sparkle with excitement as she asks, he even asked for your Insta? Jin-young did? Sunwoo chuckles, yeah, and it was from an account he literally just made, pooh ha ha. Soo-young squeals back, seriously? That's crazy. He must be interested in you. Sunwoo leans over her desk, saying, hey, but Soo-young, I'm curious about something. Soo-young turns to listen and asks, what is it?
Sunwoo asks, is it true he normally isn't interested in girls? Soo-young enthusiastically confirms, it's true, he's only like that with you.
Sunwoo ponders, really? For real? As Soo-young suddenly spots Jin-young walking past their classroom window. With a playful glint in her eyes, Sunwoo challenges, then do you want me to show you right now whether it's true or not? Leaving Soo-young to wonder, huh? How? Walking down the hallway, Jin-young turns around in confusion as he hears Soo-young dramatically crying out, oh my, what is this? Soo-young sits on the floor in a highly exaggerated, flower-framed pose of distress, announcing, I fell over. She winks tearfully, trying her best to look adorable, and adds, Soo-young's hurt. Pouting cutely, Soo-young coos, it'd be nice if you helped me up, Jin-young, while Jin-young stares down at her with a completely blank expression. In Jin-young's eyes, Soo-young's entire body instantly petrifies, transforming her into a gray, lifeless stone statue. Without a shred of hesitation, Jin-young grabs Soo-young by the hood of her sweatshirt and yanks her straight up, muttering her name, Soo-young-hoo, as she squeaks, ack. Jin-young immediately walks away in silence, leaving Soo-young standing there utterly speechless and stunned. From nearby, Sunwoo bursts into uncontrollable roaring laughter, causing Soo-young to flinch in embarrassment. Clutching her stomach, Sunwoo laughs, he yanked you up like he was pulling a radish. Lol. Well, anyway, you were right. Soo-young can only stand there in silent humiliation. Wide-eyed and twitching with sheer anger, Soo-young mutters under her breath, you effing bastard. A stylized title cover shows Sunwoo leaning forward with a captivating smile, reaching her hand out toward the screen. After school, the scene shifts outside the high school building as Jin-young begins his walk home. Walking along the path, Jason sits on Jin-young's shoulder and asks, have you gotten used to that kid's face at all? Jin-young looks at his phone and admits, not really. I keep looking at it. Jin-young suddenly flinches as a bright blush creeps onto his cheeks. Looking at a gorgeous sunset photo of Sunwoo on his phone screen, Jin-young thinks, but every time it feels kinda new. This is gonna take a while. Jason poses thoughtfully, advising, I think you need to figure out the fundamental reason. Jin-young questions, the fundamental reason? Jason looks at Jin-young seriously and asks, why is it that only that kid doesn't look like a stone to you? Prompting Jin-young to mutter a thoughtful, So I came up with a few hypotheses, Jason begins, but Jin-young suddenly stops in his tracks, gasping, wait, Jin-young spots Sunwoo standing by a wall with a worried expression, biting her finger as she murmurs, this is bad. Jin-young whispers to Jason, Sunwoo's over there. What is she doing over there? Sunwoo suddenly perks up, noticing someone approaching. Seeing him, Sunwoo waves and calls out, isn't that Jin-young? Hi? Causing Jin-young's heart to practically explode out of his chest in absolute panic. Clenching his teeth and blushing furiously, Jin-young struggles to maintain his composure, groaning, ugh. Standing across from her, Jin-young nervously asks, what are you doing standing here? Sunwoo explains her predicament. I need to take the bus home, but I don't have bus fare. Jin-young asks, oh really? Where do you live? When Sunwoo replies, I live in Simo Village Apartments, Jin-young blinks in utter disbelief, stammering, what? Jin-young points out, if it's Simo Village Apartments, you can just walk, right? It's right in front of here. But Sunwoo sighs dramatically. It's not that easy, leaving Jin-young to ask, why? Sunwoo looks down, a delicate blush coloring her cheeks as she puts on a weak expression. Clasping her hands to her chest, Sunwoo murmurs, I have chronic anemia, while Jin-young can only stare at her in silent skepticism. Sighing, Jin-young opens his wallet and offers, this is all the money I have, but you can use it for bus fare. Sunwoo quickly waves her hands, declining, no. Playfully tapping Jin-young's chest, Sunwoo giggles, that makes it sound like I'm shaking you down, Jin-young. You can just take me home. Jin-young's mind completely breaks down as he stammers, what? Sunwoo points ahead cheerfully, saying, there's no way you'd just leave me, right? This way. While Jin-young nervously tries to slow her down, stammering, hey, wait. A sudden jolt of shock runs through Jin-young as lightning crackles in his mind, and he sweats profusely, thinking, all of a sudden? Looking at the quiet street under the glowing sunset, Jin-young stands in silence as he begins to recall, so then Soo-young said. As they walk side by side down the pavement, Sunwoo chatters endlessly while Jin-young walks stiffly, clutching his backpack straps in sheer nervous tension. With his cheeks burning red, Jin-young struggles to keep his composure, thinking, I can't hear a single word she's saying. Sunwoo closes her eyes and smiles cutely, saying, this and that? Are you even listening? This is sudden. I can't believe we ended up walking together like this. Walking alongside her, Jin Young's sweat intensifies as he thinks to himself, this situation is really uncomfortable for me. Jin Young recalls his childhood, remembering, there was a girl who walked home with me every day since our routes overlapped. Naturally, I started to like her. He remembers how their elementary school classmates would point and gossip, shouting, huh? That's Park Jin Young and Kim Minji. It really is? Why are they walking together? Their classmates teased them, asking, are you two dating? Which caused Minji to turn red and yell back, what? No, we're not. Minji then harshly rejected the idea in front of everyone, shouting, who would date someone like him, leaving childhood Jin Young completely heartbroken. Back in the present, Jin Young thinks, anyway, that's why this situation is really uncomfortable. I just want it to end quickly. Thinking that Sunwoo usually takes the bus, Jin Young hopes this won't happen again when he suddenly hears a sharp groan of pain from behind. Jin Young flinches in surprise, gasping, ah, as he hears her struggling. He turns around to find Sunwoo collapsed on the pavement, panting heavily. As he screams in shock, Jung Sunwoo? Jin Young quickly rushes back to her side, panic-stricken, asking, what's wrong? Did you trip over something? While she groans in exhaustion.
Sunwoo pants heavily, muttering, damn uphill road, and wheezes, I told you I have chronic anemia. Jin Young can only blink in sudden realization.
Extending her trembling hand, Sunwoo asks weakly, can you support me a bit? And a flustered Jin Young replies, oh, okay. Jin Young gently pulls her up as she whispers, a little slower, and he nervously responds, yeah, while she thanks him. Sunwoo holds her head, complaining, I feel dizzy, while Jin Young looks down at his own hands in absolute shock, his heart racing as he realizes, my hand was being held. Sunwoo stands, catches her breath, her cheeks deeply flushed as she sighs softly in the warm evening air. Jin Young walks ahead, his back to her, trying to suppress his racing thoughts, muttering, crap, my imagination's starting again. A flashback scene shows Jin Young brutally yanking Soo-young up by her sweatshirt hood earlier that day, showing his lack of hesitation. Sunwoo giggles softly to herself, looking at Jin Young with a mischievous, amused expression. Sunwoo teases him, saying, you yanked Soo-young up like a radish, though, causing Jin Young to sweat profusely and panic, replying, what are you talking about? Who's Soo-young? Reaching the apartments, Jin Young awkwardly tries to end the walk, saying, anyway, I'm home now. Let's say bye here, but halts as she reacts with surprise. Sunwoo waves cheerfully, calling out, thanks for walking me home, bye, to which Jin Young waves back and sighs, yeah, bye, thinking it's finally over. Jin Young walks away down the street, sweating as he reflects, seriously, that was an uncomfortable time. He tries to reassure himself, thinking, thank goodness, this won't happen tomorrow. He walks off into the sunset, hoping, reading that way my delusional thoughts will stop too. Under the warm golden sky, the two of them continue walking in opposite directions, putting distance between themselves. Sunwoo suddenly stops in her tracks, gasping softly. Oh, a playful, clever grin appears on her face as she murmurs, damn, I almost forgot. Sunwoo spins around and calls out loudly down the street, hey Jin Young, startling him instantly. Jin Young whips his head around in confusion as she playfully says, it'll take a while before I get my allowance. So, leaning forward with a gorgeous, teasing smile and flushed cheeks, Sunwoo requests, take care of me again tomorrow, okay? The scene shifts to Jin Young running away in absolute panic and exhaustion, panting heavily. Damn, running. I'm dizzy again. Jin Young groans about wanting to avoid this uncomfortable situation, while a shirtless and muscular Jason sits relaxed on the floor, asking, I'm curious about something, my friend. Jason looks at Jin Young with a knowing smirk and asks, what exactly is that expression? Jin Young closes his eyes and groans, completely embarrassed. Jin Young recalls Sunwoo sitting on the ground earlier, looking completely exhausted and panting heavily. In his memory, he worriedly scolded her, asking, why did you run? Sit down first. The next day at school, Soo-young is seen fiercely practicing low kicks against the lockers. When Sunwoo asks what she's doing, Soo-young angrily replies, so I can beat the hell out of Park Jin Young. Back in Jin Young's room, Jin Young asks Jason, why is Sawano the only one who doesn't look like a stone? And side-eyes him asking, why are you shirtless? To which Jason simply replies, it's hot. Jin Young sits cross-legged on the floor, analyzing the mystery. Jung Sunwoo, the girl who appeared out of nowhere. And the reason she's the only one who doesn't look like a stone. A quiet, contemplative silence fills the bedroom as Jin Young and shirtless Jason sit opposite each other on the floor, brainstorming. Jason gestures and asks, is that really the only reason? To which Jin Young responds, that's the only thing that comes to mind. Jin Young grabs his black backpack, deciding to wrap up the conversation by saying, anyway, let's talk about this later. We need to get to school first. And Jason agrees, all right. Jin Young slides open his bedroom door and steps out, heading off to school for the day. As he walks out, he is startled by a voice calling out to him, "Are you heading to school?" Jin-young nervously greets his father, saying, "Father." His father asks, "Did you sleep well?" while Jin-young bows his head in silent acknowledgement. His father asks if he has eaten, but a flustered Jin-young declines, explaining explicitly, "I think I'll skip breakfast. I'm not really hungry." His father mentions that his mother made kimchi stew, to which Jin-young awkwardly replies, I'll have some when I get back." As Jin-young's father walks away, advising him to eat properly, Jin-young politely answers, "Yes, father." Jin-young starts to head out, saying, "I'll get going now," as he quietly slips out of the house. As Jin-young arrives at school, he thinks to himself, "Jason, if your theory is correct." Walking down the corridor, Jin-young worries, "Does that mean I'm destined to be dragged around by Seonwoo from now on?" To which tiny Jason on his shoulder answers, "It can't be helped." Jin-young mutters, "I hope your theory is wrong," while Jason advises him, "Don't worry too much," as a mysterious classmate steps forward. Suddenly, a voice calls out, "Park Jin-young," causing him to turn around in surprise. It is Soo-young, standing firmly in the hallway with her arms crossed, wearing a yellow hoodie over her school uniform. Soo-young looks at Jin-young with a serious expression and bluntly says, "I'm gonna hit you," leaving Jin-young completely bewildered. Jin-young stares at her in absolute confusion, trying to make sense of her sudden declaration. Soo-young proudly explains, "I stayed up all night practicing my low kicks just so I can hurt you," prompting Jin-young to ask in confusion, "Wait, who are you?" Soo-young recalls her past embarrassment, complaining, "Wow, seriously, I've never been so humiliated before," while Jin-young repeats in confusion, "Humiliated?" Despite her anger, Soo-young vows, "Anyway, I'm not letting you off the hook," as Jin-young effortlessly lifts her by her hoodie hood. Holding up 3 fingers, Soo-young warns him, "I'll let you off with just 3 low kicks. Brace yourself." Jin-young is completely dumbfounded, asking, "Huh? Wait, why do I have to?" Soo-young suddenly strikes him with a powerful low kick, yelling, "Shut up, you damn four eyes," as Jin-young screams in agony. Shocked by Jin-young's sudden retreat, Soo-young yells, "What the fuck? You're running away?" as he frantically bolts down the hallway. Giving chase, Soo-young boasts, "I'm actually pretty fast, you know, and unlike Seonwoo, I don't have anemia." Jin-young looks back over his shoulder in pure terror, realizing his pursuer is closing in fast. In Jin-young's panicked mind, Soo-young looks like a terrifying creature relentlessly chasing him down. Sweat pouring down his face, Jin-young runs for his life, thinking, "She looks like a boulder rolling towards me." Soo-young easily catches up to Jin-young, grabbing his shoulder and shouting cheerfully, "Gotcha!" With Jin-young trapped, Soo-young winds up her leg, calling out, "Low." Jin-young can only scream in sheer horror as the impending strike approaches. Just then, Seonwoo steps out of a classroom, wondering, "What was that? Why was there such a loud noise?" while a panicked Jin-young spots her and gasps in shock. Soo-young's powerful low kick accidentally connects directly with Seonwoo's shin instead, landing with a brutal impact. Seonwoo is frozen in absolute shock and agony from the sudden, unexpected blow. Soo-young's eyes go wide in horror as she realizes who she just hit, gasping, "Whoa!" Seonwoo collapses onto the floor in intense pain, prompting a horrified Jin-young to scream, "Seonwoo?" Panicked, Jin-young quickly turns around to rush to Seonwoo's aid. Rushing over and asking, "Seo, are you okay?" Jin-young suddenly loses his footing and slips out of his sandal. Jin-young takes a spectacular tumble, face-planting hard onto the hallway floor as his glasses and shoe fly off. The impact of the fall is devastating, resulting in a fractured nasal bone for Jin-young. Soo-young can only stand in stunned silence, looking down at the absolute chaos she has caused with both Jin-young and Seonwoo sprawled on the floor. Sweating profusely, a deeply embarrassed Soo-young can only stammer, in complete disbelief. The scene shifts to the school infirmary, where Jin-young and Seonwoo are lying side by side on 2 hospital beds. Looking over at Jin-young, Seonwoo sighs, "Soo-young has always been a bit weird," while Jin-young tries to reassure her, saying, "I'm fine." With his nose heavily bandaged, Jin-young notices they are alone and quietly calls out, "Jason?" Jason is relaxing in a stylish suit at a miniature tea table, telling Jin-young it is tea time and warning Jin-young, "I hope your inner loser doesn't show." Jin-young is incredibly tense, sweating as he realizes, just like Jason said, "I'm alone with Seonwoo again." Staring at the ceiling, Jin-young desperately hopes, "I just hope I don't say anything stupid." Seonwoo turns to face him with a pleasant smile, casually asking, "Jin-young, do you know what's for lunch today?" Jin-young replies, "Lunch? Isn't it fried croaker?" Which delights Seonwoo, though Jin-young is internally groaning, seriously?" Seonwoo then asks, "Do you eat breakfast before school, Jin-young?" To which he replies, "I usually skip it," leaving her to wonder, "Why? You must be hungry." Jin Young explains his family situation, saying, "My father is always home in the mornings, but it's kind of awkward being alone together, so I just leave early." Looking closely at Xianwu, Jin Young suddenly recalls what Sugyong said earlier. He remembers Sugyong telling Xianwu in the hallway, "You're really pretty." Jin Young reflects on his behavior, thinking he only blurted out those words because it had been a long time since he last looked closely at a girl's face. Looking over at Xianwu resting on the infirmary bed, Jin Young can't help but admire her beauty, thinking to himself how incredibly pretty she is. Senwoo notices Jin Young staring and playfully asks, "Hey, what are you staring at? Am I that pretty?" causing him to freeze in absolute shock. Jin Young sits up in a panic, desperately waving his hands as he tries to deny it, while Xianwu bursts out laughing at his flustered reaction. As Xianwu apologizes and tells him she was just kidding, Jin Young's heart races as he wonders if she was just teasing him. Senwoo laughs softly, admitting that teasing Jin Young is incredibly fun for her. When Jin Young nervously asks what she means, Xianwu simply replies, "Exactly what I said." Jin Young groans in embarrassment as Xianwu points out how he panics over the smallest things and says the weirdest stuff whenever he's flustered. When Jin Young sheepishly apologizes, Xianwu bursts into laughter again, reassuring him that there's absolutely no need to apologize. Xianwu gives Jin Young a warm, breathtaking smile that fills the room with a bright, pleasant atmosphere. Completely overwhelmed by her dazzling smile, Jin Young awkwardly looks away, blushing furiously as his heart skips a beat. Jin Young recalls his conversation with shirtless Jason, who proposed a major theory about his sudden infatuation. With a deadpan and serious expression, Jason states his simple conclusion. The theory is simple yet shocking. Jin Young had simply fallen head over heels in love with Xianwu at first sight. Elegant Jason, relaxing in his stylish suit, sips his tea and confirms that this is the only theory that makes sense for now. Jin Young grabs Su Yang from behind to restrain her, while she panics and yells for him to wait. Sunwoo raises her fists with a menacing smile, demanding responsibility, while Sugyong frantically asks Jin Young to let go of her, but Jin Young refuses. Senwoo prepares to strike with a fierce glare, while Jin Young can only scream in anticipation of the impact. Senwoo delivers a powerful middle kick directly into Sugyong's midsection, catching both Sugyong and Jin Young completely off guard. Caught in the shockwave of the impact, Jin Young is sent flying backward, wondering how he ended up in this absurd situation. In Jin Young's dark, looming thoughts, a cold voice asks, "What, love at first sight? You, with me?" He desperately calls out her name, looking at her cold, turned back. Sunwoo coldly tells him that just because she was slightly nice to him, he let his wild delusions run out of control. She looks back over her shoulder with deep contempt, delivering the final crushing blow. "You pathetic loser." With a sudden gasp, Jin Young sits straight up in bed, drenched in cold sweat as he wakes up from his terrifying dream. Still dazed, Jin Young is startled by a voice asking him if he just had a nightmare. He looks over to see a muscular Jason sitting in matching pajamas and a nightcap, pointing out that Jin Young is panting heavily. After Jin Young explains, Jason processes the information, repeating that Jin Young dreamed of being despised by Xianwu. Jason asks if Jin Young's deep-seated trauma regarding women has been triggered once again, and Jin Young quietly agrees. Jin Young admits that he has been having this exact same nightmare repeatedly, prompting Jason to curiously ask when it started. Jin Young explains that the dreams began ever since they discussed the hypothesis of him falling in love with Xianwu at first sight, to which Jason responds with interest. Jason reasons that if the hypothesis is indeed correct, then Jin Young's feelings represent a painful, unrequited love. Looking at Jin Young's sad and sweating face, Jason bluntly points out that his friend is currently experiencing deep fear. Jason gives a thumbs up and confidently quotes classic wisdom, advising him to know his enemy and know himself to win 100 battles. Jin Young walks down the school hallway with miniature Jason sitting on his shoulder, deducing that he needs to gather more information about Xianwu. Realizing he actually knows very little about Xianwu, Jin Young agrees it's a good strategy, which brings relief to tiny Jason. Jin Young arrives in front of class 2-5, which he knows is Xianwu's homeroom. Sweating and trembling from nervousness, Jin Young slowly slides the door open while tiny Jason tells him to stay calm. A quiet hum of classroom activity greets Jin Young as he scans the room, searching for Xianwu among the stone-like classmates. Noticing her absence, Jin Young wonders if Xianwu has gone to the restroom. Suddenly, an abrupt voice from behind startles Jin Young, catching his attention. Standing in front of him is a large, stern classmate named Lim Kumin, who bluntly tells Jin Young that he is standing in his seat. Jin Young stands completely frozen with blanked-out glasses, entirely caught off guard by the massive student's sudden appearance. Jin Young quickly apologizes and moves out of the way, while the large student grunts, "Humph," as he squeezes past him.
Seeing the rude classmate, Jason gets extremely irritated, declaring that something about this guy displeases him and makes him want to commit assault. Jin-young politely asks Lim Kyu-min if he has seen Senwoo and confirms if the empty desk next to him indeed belongs to her. Lim Kyu-min looks at Jin-young with a cynical, sidelong glance, muttering that people like him exist from time to time. Lim Kyu-min smugly refers to Jin-young as one of those greenhorns who foolishly fall head over heels for a girl like Senwoo, leaving Jin-young utterly baffled. Jin-young is taken aback, sweating nervously as he wonders what is wrong with the rude classmate's condescending tone. Jason suddenly pulls out a massive, fully loaded machine gun with a fierce grin, forcing a panicked Jin-young to frantically beg him to hold back just this once. Frustrated, Jin-young tells Lim Kyu-min to cut the nonsense, but quickly catches himself and politely asks, "I mean, buddy, do you really not know where Sunwoo went?" Kyu-min coldly responds, "Like I'd know about that damn woman," leaving a shocked Jin-young to utter, "What?" Offended, Jin-young demands, "Damn woman? Don't you dare insult Sunwoo," while Kyu-min merely scoffs. Pfft. Kyu-min looks down at Jin-young and remarks, "You're a hopeless case as well," leaving Jin-young in tense, speechless silence. Jin-young begins taking off his school blazer, telling Kyu-min to stand up because he has something to give him, prompting Kyu-min to ask, "Why?" Sighing deeply, Kyu-min slowly stands up from his desk, muttering about how incredibly tiresome this is. With a fierce shout of "Blazer attack!" Jin-young swings his folded blazer with all his might. The blazer whips furiously through the air, repeatedly slapping Kyu-min's face and exposed belly with loud, stinging impacts. Jin-young continues his rapid-fire blazer assault, relentlessly whipping Kyu-min as the heavy slaps echo through the classroom. Just then, Seon-woo slides the classroom door open with a pleasant smile, wondering aloud what the loud noise is, since it sounds like a pig being slaughtered. Senwoo spots Jin-young and cheerfully greets him, while Jin-young calls out her name in surprise, standing proudly next to a heavily bruised and cowering Kyu-min. Jin-young passionately declares that he was beating Kyu-min up because he insulted her by calling her a damn woman, to which Seon-woo responds with a calm, understanding "ah." With a bright, cheerful smile, Seon-woo casually tells Jin-young to feel free to keep beating him up, since he's always like that, leaving Jin-young utterly confused. Jin-young demands to know why Kyu-min is acting so strangely, while Kyu-min simply groans and lets out a bizarre, happy chuckle. Sunwoo winks playfully and explains that Kyu-min has been like that since they were kids, prompting a surprised Jin-young to repeat, "Since you were kids?" Seon-woo reveals that she and Kyu-min are childhood friends, while Kyu-min blushes and holds his hands together like a shy schoolgirl, utterly shocking Jin-young. Sitting side by side on an outdoor bench, Jin-young politely apologizes for hitting him, but Kyu-min reassures him that it didn't hurt at all. Jin-young asks if they have really been friends since childhood, and Kyu-min confirms they've known each other since they were about 3 years old. Jin-young is thrilled, realizing this is the perfect opportunity to execute Jason's strategy and gather more information about Seon-woo. Kyu-min's expression turns serious as he warns Jin-young, "If you're aiming for Jung Sunwoo, you'd better give up," catching Jin-young off guard. Kyu-min explains that Sunwoo is incredibly popular and that there is literally a truckload of guys constantly chasing after her. Kyu-min adds that despite her massive popularity, the success rate for any of those guys is exactly 0. Jin-young silently agrees, remembering that she is extremely popular and even has over 2,000 followers on social media. Jin-young suggests that she might have just rejected them because they weren't her type, which Kyu-min concedes is entirely possible. Kyu-min clarifies that her popularity isn't the reason he is advising Jin-young to give up, prompting Jin-young to ask, "Then what is it?" Kyu-min reflects on their childhood, noting that he and Sunwoo have known each other for as long as they can remember. Because they always went to the same schools, they naturally ended up spending a massive amount of time together growing up. Kyu-min recalls a specific day in middle school when he walked up behind her in the hallway and called out, "Hey, damn woman!" He casually demanded to know what she was doing and told her to go buy him some bread if she had nothing better to do. But the moment she slowly turned around to face him, Kyu-min froze as a cold sweat broke out. When she looked back and acknowledged him, Kyu-min instantly felt a chilling, indescribable sensation that something was deeply off about her. She was smiling her usual smile, but her eyes were entirely empty. She was not the Sunwoo he knew, and the feeling was deeply unsettling. Back in the present, Kyu-min tells Jin-young that ever since that strange day, there has always been something deeply off about Sunwoo. Kyu-min seriously concludes that this bizarre aura is the real reason Jin-young should just give up on her, leaving Jin-young in contemplative silence. Jin-young is left wondering what Kyu-min meant by something off, trying to make sense of the warning. Walking down the hallway together, Jin-young questions what that vibe actually feels like, noting that he has never felt anything weird from her. Jinyoung internally dismisses the warning, thinking it's probably just Cumin's personal, exaggerated opinion that he can easily ignore. Suddenly, Jinyoung and Cumin freeze in absolute shock as a sweet voice calls out from behind them. Oh, what's this? Senwoo, holding hands with her friend Park Ji-yoon, playfully asks if the two of them have already become close friends and are hanging out. When Seonwoo asks what they've been up to, Jinyoung panics, sweating as he desperately tries to invent a decent excuse to hide that they were talking about her. Before Jinyoung can lie, Cumin bluntly confesses, "We were just talking trash about you, you damn woman," instantly paralyzing Jinyoung with sheer terror. Jinyoung screams in his mind, absolutely losing his sanity over Cumin's unbelievable suicidal honesty. Completely overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of the situation, Jinyoung's mind short-circuits as he panics over Cumin's bluntness. An incredibly heavy, awkward silence falls over the hallway as Seonwoo and Ji-yoon stare at them in disbelief. Senwoo looks deeply hurt, asking if they were really talking behind her back, while Jinyoung frantically waves his hands to deny it. Ji-yoon bursts into loud laughter, teasing Jinyoung by saying his low character is showing, which only makes him deny it even more desperately. Cumin doubles down with a straight face, claiming they indeed tore into her nasty backside, pushing a furious Jinyoung to his absolute limit. Pushed beyond his limits, Jinyoung swings his blazer back into action, screaming at Cumin to shut his mouth once and for all. Jinyoung unleashes another rapid-fire blazer whipping, leaving Cumin's belly to bear the brunt of the fast-paced, stinging slaps. Muscle-bound Jason, wearing sunglasses and holding a massive military rifle, proudly nods and praises Jinyoung's blazer attack, saying he might have shot him otherwise. Walking away down the hallway, Park Ji-yoon wonders what is wrong with Jinyoung and Cumin, while Seonwoo casually suggests just leaving those idiots alone. Seonwoo glances to the side as the sound of Jinyoung's rapid-fire blazer slaps echoes from down the corridor. Standing alone in front of the school gate, Jinyoung realizes with a cold sweat that things have taken a very bad turn. Walking home with miniature Jason sitting on his shoulder, Jinyoung laments that he barely learned anything about Seonwoo and has only caused more misunderstandings, blaming it all on Cumin. Annoyed by Cumin's bizarre warnings about Seonwoo having something off about her, Jinyoung grumbles that he should have let Jason butcher him. Suddenly, a voice calling out his name catches Jinyoung completely off guard. Sanyu appears right beside him with a playful smile, asking if he had fun talking behind her back. Jinyoung jumps in sheer panic, stammering her name in shock. Sweat dripping down his face, Jinyoung nervously wonders how Seonwoo always manages to catch him off guard like this. Senwoo giggles cutely, thoroughly amused by his panic reaction. Jinyoung frantically tries to explain that he wasn't badmouthing her, while Seonwoo smilingly reassures him that she knows. Laughing playfully, Seonwoo slaps Jinyoung's shoulder and says she knows Gumin was just messing around, adding that Jinyoung would never do such a thing. Changing the subject, Seonwoo asks him to walk her home, and when Jinyoung asks if she still has no bus money, she casually confirms it. Sanwoo sighs, complaining that just thinking about climbing the steep hill to her place is already stressing her out. As Jinyoung reflects on the situation, Jason sits nearby holding a rifle, pointing out that even if Jinyoung didn't badmouth her, he still talked about her behind her back, which Jinyoung reluctantly admits is true. Jinyoung decides that for now, it is best not to mention to Seonwoo that she was indeed the topic of their conversation. Suddenly, Jinyoung is startled by a loud groan of exhaustion. Standing at the base of an incredibly steep uphill road, Seonwoo dramatically declares how much she absolutely hates climbing slopes. Jinyoung looks at her in disbelief, asking if a slope like this is really that difficult, prompting an immediate and passionate "of course it is" from her. Senwoo lists the severe symptoms of chronic anemia, explaining how slopes leave her gasping for breath and suffering from massive headaches, leaving Jinyoung feeling genuinely sympathetic. Pointing to her back, Seonwoo casually requests that Jinyoung push her from behind to help her climb the hill. Seeing Jinyoung hesitate, Sunwoo urges him to hurry up and push if he wants to get home, forcing a flustered Jinyoung to nervously agree. Sweating profusely from nervousness, Jinyoung slowly and gently places both hands on Seonwoo's back. Jinyoung begins pushing Seonwoo up the steep incline, asking if it helps, and she happily confirms that it is much easier to climb. Senwoo bursts into giggles, mentioning that his touch tickles, which sends Jinyoung's heart racing as he blushes. Looking back with a blush, Seonwoo explains that she is actually quite sensitive when people touch her back, making Jinyoung's hands tremble. Jinyoung's mind begins to spin as he realizes how dangerous it is when she teases and jokes with him like this. Blushing deeply, Jinyoung starts to lose himself in a sudden wave of romantic daydreams. He imagines a scenario where they are close enough to casually touch, with Seonwoo softly asking him to push a little slower. His fantasy escalates to a sparkly, romantic scene where he confidently carries Seonwoo on his back up the hill. Imaginary Jason enthusiastically applauds the sweet daydream, praising Jin Young for his sugary romantic vision. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Jin Young tells himself that this level of daydreaming is perfectly normal and that it's not like he's planning their future grandchildren yet. Lost in his thoughts, Jin Young's face softens, but he is suddenly snapped back to reality when Seonwoo calls out to him. Senwoo is panting heavily and sweating, desperately screaming at him to push slower because she feels like she's about to die. Terrified, Jin Young quickly pulls his hands back and frantically apologizes, explaining that he had zoned out for a moment. After catching their breath, Jin Young looks up and is suddenly captivated by what lies ahead. Reaching the top of the hill, they are greeted by a breathtaking sunset view overlooking the entire city. Taking in the beautiful open view, Jin Young is amazed to learn that this is the kind of neighborhood Seonwoo lives in. Senyu suddenly gasps in wonder, spotting something that catches her eye. Looking out at the gorgeous sunset alongside other residents, Seonwoo admits she had no idea a beautiful spot like this existed near her house, which surprises Jin Young. Seonwoo notes that a high hill like this isn't exactly a place a chronic anemia patient would ever climb on their own, and Jin Young agrees. Looking back at him with a playful glare, Seonwoo half-jokingly threatens him, complaining that she's now exhausted and still has to walk all the way back. Feeling a sudden wave of courage, Jin Young gazes at her and prepares to tell her the truth. Turning back to face the sunset, Seonwoo softly says that since he showed her this beautiful place, she will forgive him just this once. Brushing her hair behind her ear, Seonwoo smiles warmly at the sunset, whispering that the view is truly beautiful. Watching her, Jin Young remembers Kyu-min's serious warning about the unsettling aura Seonwoo supposedly possesses. Looking at Seonwoo bathed in the golden twilight, Jin Young decides that if being unable to look at anything else but her is what Kyu-min meant, then he gladly welcomes that feeling. Taking a deep breath, Jin Young calls out her name. With a serious expression, Jin Young confesses that he actually did talk about her behind her back with Kyu-min. Sunwoo turns around in shock, asking if he really badmouthed her, while Jin Young frantically waves his hands to explain that it wasn't badmouthing. Looking out over the cityscape at sunset, Jin Young nervously confesses that he only wanted to know more about Seonwoo after finding out she and Gyumin were childhood friends. Scratching his head, Jin Young admits that his curiosity about Seonwoo was the real reason behind his conversation. Seonwoo is taken completely off guard by his sudden confession, her cheeks flushing pink. Looking down at Seonwoo, Jin Young desperately explains that while it seemed like they were gossiping, he would never say anything bad about her. Jin Young awkwardly scratches his neck, hoping she doesn't misunderstand his intentions. An awkward silence falls between them as Seonwoo stands quietly, processing his honest words. Smiling brightly, Seonwoo reassures him that he doesn't need to worry about it, as she has already forgotten the whole thing. Relieved, Jin Young asks if she is truly okay, and Seonwoo cheerfully suggests they finally head back home. Jin Young asks if she will be alright walking downhill on her own, and Seonwoo playfully waves her hand, reassuring him she'll be fine. Waving goodbye, Seonwoo thanks Jin Young for taking the detour to walk her home, and Jin Young bids her a nervous farewell. As she walks away, Jin Young stands frozen in the street, his mind completely frazzled by her reaction. Jason suddenly appears, resting his chin on his hand as he thoughtfully remarks that Seonwoo's reaction is incredibly hard to read. Jason questions if Jin Young really needed to be that honest with her, leaving Jin Young to second-guess his blunt confession. Jason advises Jin Young that while honesty is admirable, sometimes it is better to just remain quiet and let things go. Senwoo walks alone down the quiet streets under the warm glow of the evening sunset. Looking slightly downcast, Seonwoo walks home in deep thought, reflecting on Jin Young's sudden confession. Back in the sunset's golden light, Jin Young's sincere words continue to echo in his mind, highlighting his genuine desire to know her. Senwoo smiles to herself, finding Jin Young's unexpected, sudden moments of honesty strangely endearing. In a brief comic strip cookie scene, a classmate accuses the heavyset boy of stealing her bread, threatening to butcher him, prompting Jin Young to comment on what true friendship looks like. Suddenly, Jason gasps in shock as he spots something interesting happening in the school hallway. Walking down the corridor in his track uniform, Jin Young is encouraged by a miniature Jason on his shoulder to go play soccer. Jason urges him to work up a sweat and become even more of a man, and Jin Young readily agrees. Suddenly, Jin Young notices that his shoelaces come loose. Jin Young drops to his knee in the middle of the hallway to quickly tie his loose shoe. Startled by a sudden presence, Jin Young looks up in confusion. He finds a tall, strictly dressed female teacher looking down at him coldly, asking why he decided to squat in the middle of the hallway. The young teacher, Jo Han-gyal, scolds him, asking if he has a death wish for almost making her trip and fall. Sweating nervously, Jin Young looks up and stammers out his greeting to Han-gyal. Shoving his head down with her hand, Han-gyal orders Jin Young to keep his head down and stop looking at her. Keeping his head pinned down, she asks him if he really needs to ask why he shouldn't look up.
Hangul explains with a stern glare that girls absolutely despise being looked at from a low angle because it makes them look ugly. Leaning in close to Jinyoung's pinned head, Hangul mutters that it is embarrassing and calls him a punk. Walking away down the corridor, Hangul warns Jinyoung not to stop dead in the middle of the hallway ever again. Left on his knees, Jinyoung's sweat drops in absolute silence as his teacher walks away. Jinyoung reflects that since he sees girls as stone statues anyway, it didn't really affect him, but he notes he'd be dead if he had actually said that to her. A vibrant transition page features a beautiful illustration of Seon-woo stretching in athletic sportswear. Jinyoung recalls that his deep-seated fear of rejection in the past caused his mind to perceive every girl as a plain gray stone statue. To ensure he would never experience rejection again, Jinyoung threw himself entirely into personal study and self-improvement. He continuously pushed his limits by working out intensely at the gym, focusing entirely on his own self-development. Back on the soccer field, Jinyoung unleashes a powerful, dynamic kick to send the ball flying toward the goal. The ball flies into the top corner of the net past the diving goalkeeper as his classmates scream goal in excitement. Jinyoung's teammates crowd around him, cheering and celebrating their joy of having him in their class. The exhausted goalkeeper catches his breath while his teammates enthusiastically look forward to crushing the rival class. From the sidelines, Ji-yoon spots something on the soccer field that instantly grabs her attention. Walking together with Seon-woo, Ji-yoon complains that the classroom will smell like sweat since all the boys are playing soccer. Looking over the field, Ji-yoon points out that Jinyoung is playing out there as well. Hearing Jinyoung's name, Seon-woo turns her head as the girls on the stairs let out excited cheers. The girls sitting on the steps swoon over how cool and outstanding Jinyoung looks while playing. Seon-woo watches him intently from the sidelines, whispering his name as her heart skips a beat. The girls discuss how Jinyoung's complete lack of interest in girls only adds to his cool, charming mystery. Pointing toward a group of girls swooning over Jinyoung, Ji-yoon complains about the cringeworthy fangirls, while Seon-woo looks on quietly with a lollipop in her mouth. Ji-yoon questions why Park Jin-young is so popular to begin with, telling Seon-woo that describing him as cool and sexy is definitely pushing it. Sen-woo sucks on her lollipop and lets out a soft murmur, looking off to the side with a contemplative expression. Seon-woo recalls her past interactions with Jae-young, remembering how dorky, nervous, and incredibly anxious he actually gets whenever they are close. Sen-woo smiles warmly and agrees with Ji-yoon's comment, finding Jin-young's awkward side rather endearing. The school bell rings loudly across the campus, signaling that the class is officially ended. After their soccer match, Jin-young's classmates excitedly cheer and thank him for the victory, while Jin-young politely smiles and suggests they play again tomorrow. Sweating profusely from the intense game, Jin-young decides to wash up at the outdoor school sink before heading back inside. Jin-young bends over the outdoor sink, splashing cool water on his face to wash away the sweat. As Jin-young wipes his face, Gyu-min walks over to praise him, admitting he didn't expect anyone to score a goal past him. Surprised to see the goalie, Jin-young returns the compliment, telling Gyu-min that he did a pretty good job defending the net today too. Gyu-min suddenly makes a highly dramatic, serious face and declares that he is aggrieved, leaving Jin-young completely bewildered. Gyu-min asks if Jin-young is aware of the dark side of soccer, but Jin-young flatly replies that he has absolutely no interest in knowing. Gyu-min explains that the dark side of soccer is how the goalkeeper always gets blamed for the team's loss. Gyu-min complains that blocking 10 shots means nothing if you let in just one, prompting Jin-young to sympathize, only for Gyu-min to suddenly declare his dislike for Jin-young. Gyu-min glares intensely, stating that his inability to block Jin-young's shot is the exact reason why he dislikes him. Inside Jin-young's mind, a muscular imaginary Jason prepares to swing an axe at Gyu-min, forcing Jin-young to desperately keep his temper under control. Gyu-min presses down on the water faucet, preparing to pull a prank. Gyu-min suddenly sprays a direct stream of cold water straight into Jin-young's face. Caught completely off guard, Jin-young flinches back and yells in shock at the freezing cold water. Annoyed and wet, Jin-young immediately retaliates by spraying water back, sparking a childish water fight. Gyu-min yells at Jin-young not to resist and calls him Four Eyes, which Jin-young angrily points out applies to Gyu-min as well since they both wear glasses. Gyu-min mocks Jin-young for always chasing after Seon-woo's shadow, prompting an angry shout from Jin-young just as Seon-woo and Ji-yoon walk within earshot. Ji-yoon recognizes the boys' voices and wonders why they are shouting so much, while Seon-woo tries to listen but can't quite make out their words. Ji-yoon suggests they go check out what weird trouble the boys are up to this time, and Seon-woo cheerfully agrees to tag along. Both boys stand drenched and panting heavily, glaring at each other after their chaotic water battle. Jin-young complains about feeling absolutely soaked and gross, while Gyu-min stubbornly scoffs at his complaints. Gyu-min shamelessly pulls his wet shirt off to wring it out, leaving Jin-young completely dumbfounded by his lack of hesitation.
Swearing to get revenge after school, an annoyed Jin-young begins to pull off his own soaked shirt. Suddenly, Seonwoo and Ji-yoon walk up to the sink and ask the shirtless boys why they aren't going inside since the warning bell already rang. Jin-young freezes in absolute panic as he realizes Seonwoo is standing right in front of him while he is half naked. The girls stand completely stunned, their eyes wide as they take in Jin-young's surprisingly muscular and well-toned chest. Both Ji-yoon and Sinu blush deeply, unable to take their eyes off Jin-young's shredded physique. Gyumin also stands completely shirtless, looking back at the girls with a blank, clueless expression. Flustered by the awkward sight, Ji-yoon and Seonwoo quickly turn around and walk away while Gyumin frantically shouts an apology. Gyumin grumbles about the girl's reaction while Jin-young stands behind him, frozen in silent, mortified shock. Jin-young's mind spins in horror as he realizes Seonwoo just saw him completely shirtless. Snapping into a rage, Jin-young blames his friend for the embarrassing incident and locks Gyumin in a tight chokehold. Gyumin struggles against the chokehold, yelling at Jin-young to let go, while the girls look back in confusion at their constant bickering. Walking away, Seonwoo blushes deeply as she reflects on Jin-young's unexpectedly impressive physical build. The story transitions to the next day, showing a wide, sunny view of the school building. Gyumin makes a dynamic airborne leap to block a powerful soccer shot on the field. Jin-young grinds his teeth in frustration as he watches his shot get blocked yet again. Classmates cheer wildly for Gyumin's impressive block, while the goalkeeper smirks triumphantly. Gyumin smugly looks at Jin-young and asks him what's wrong with his performance today. Gyumin teases Jin-young for shooting like crap compared to yesterday, leaving Jin-young sweating and cursing in frustration. Inside Jin-young's mind, a downcast Jason sits dejectedly, noting that Jin-young is clearly distracted and off his game today. As halftime begins, Jin-young tells his teammates he is going to get some rest, walking away with a heavy, distracted sigh. Slumped over in exhaustion, Jin-young sits down alone on the concrete stairs. Jin-young lets out a deep, tired sigh, sitting by himself as he struggles to shake off the embarrassing memory of yesterday. Sitting alone on the concrete steps, Jin-young looks down in exhaustion when a voice from above suddenly calls out to him, saying he looks tired. Jin-young looks up to find Seonwoo walking down toward him with a bright, cheerful smile, greeting him warmly. Startled by her sudden appearance, Jin-young looks up in surprise and stammers out her name. As Jin-young looks up at Seonwoo, his face flushes bright red and he lets out a panicked shout of embarrassment. In a frantic panic, Jin-young desperately waves his hands and orders Seonwoo to get down quickly, leaving her completely confused as she asks why. Covering his mouth in deep embarrassment, Jin-young remembers his teacher Jo Han-gyel warning him about how girls hate being looked at from a low angle. Jin-young reflects on how he didn't realize it before because his teacher looked like a plain stone statue, but seeing Seonwoo from below is a completely different story. From Jin-young's low angle, Seonwoo stands looking down at him with a puzzled expression, making him feel incredibly embarrassed. Jin-young shields his face nervously as Seonwoo asks if he doesn't want to look at her face, which Jin-young frantically denies. Jin-young nervously explains that teacher Hangyel told him girls absolutely despise being seen from a low angle because it makes them look ugly. Seonwoo leans in close with a playful smile, teasingly asking if she looks ugly to him, which causes Jin-young to frantically stammer in denial. Sitting beside her on the concrete steps, Jin-young musters up his courage and shyly confesses that she looks pretty even from below. After blurting out the compliment, Jin-young turns his head away in absolute blushing silence. Seonwoo blushes softly, resting her face on her hand as she looks at Jin-young with a quiet, contemplative smile. Suddenly realizing what he just said, Jin-young panics internally, screaming in horror at his own loose mouth. Inside Jin-young's mind, a muscular Jason crosses his legs and sighs, noting that Jin-young has walked right into another one of Seonwoo's traps. Jason teases Jin-young for his incredibly sweet compliment, while Jin-young desperately begs his imaginary coach for advice on what to do next. Jason dismisses Jin-young's desperate pleas, telling him to figure it out himself as Jin-young screams his name in despair. Jin-young grabs his head in frustration, realizing that trying to take back his words would only make things weirder, regretting his loose tongue. Resting her face in her hand, Seonwoo looks at Jin-young with a silent, warm gaze. Seonwoo lets out a soft smile, looking at him with gentle, affectionate eyes. Seonwoo happily thanks Jin-young for the compliment, leaving him completely stunned and frozen in place. Seonwoo playfully asks if he said it just to make her feel good, while a flustered Jin-young wonders if they are really just going to brush past his confession. Seonwoo beams happily, noting that compliments are always wonderful to hear, as Jin-young quietly agrees. Seonwoo mentions that she always hears other girls praising Jin-young as cool and sexy, catching him completely off guard. Jin-young frantically waves his hands in complete denial, sweating profusely as he insists he is not like that at all. Senwoo rests her head on her knees and quietly murmurs that she doesn't think the other girls are wrong about him. Jinyoung stares at Seonwoo in absolute silence, completely shocked by her unexpected words. Sweating nervously, Jinyoung slowly turns to her and asks her which part of him she is talking about. An image of Jinyoung's impressive, muscular physical build flashes in his mind as he recalls washing up at the sink. Leaning in extremely close to whisper in his ear, Seonwoo softly tells him that he looks great in a lot of ways. Jinyoung's face turns completely red as he sits frozen in absolute shock from their physical closeness. Senwoo pulls back slightly, blushing deeply as she looks at Jinyoung with a knowing, gentle smile. Their intimate moment is interrupted when a classmate runs up to rally Jinyoung for the second half of the soccer match. Jinyoung stands up to head back to the soccer field, looking back at Seonwoo with wide, lingering eyes. Sitting on the steps, Seonwoo waves goodbye and cheers Jinyoung on, telling him to bring home a victory. Back on the soccer field, Jinyoung stands amongst his classmates, preparing himself for the game to resume. Jinyoung jogs onto the field, reflecting to his mental coach Jason that he doesn't understand why his condition has suddenly changed. Jinyoung kicks the soccer ball cleanly, noting that while he felt terrible during the first half of the match, things feel completely different now. Passing his defenders with incredible ease, Jinyoung realizes his body feels surprisingly light as his teammates shout to block him. Inside Jinyoung's mind, a calm Jason folds his arms, pondering how Jinyoung's energy returned so suddenly. Jason smiles knowingly, stating that Jinyoung already knows the true reason behind his sudden burst of strength. The scene shifts back to Seonwoo sitting on the sideline steps, watching Jinyoung play as Jason notes that it's because she is watching him. Jason admits he is hesitant to say this since it goes against his previous advice about avoiding girls. Jason twirls his mustache with a mischievous smirk, preparing to share a new perspective. Jinyoung unleashes a spectacular soaring kick past the diving goalkeeper as Jason concludes that Jinyoung's feelings might not be such a bad thing after all. Ball flies into the back of the net as Jinyoung's teammates celebrate their victory, cheering for him as the team's MVP. Sweating from the intense match, Jinyoung lets out a bright, genuine laugh as his classmates celebrate around him. Watching from the sidelines, Gyumin glares in comedic fury, swearing never to forgive Jinyoung, while Seonwoo giggles and tells him not to be too upset. Seonwoo laughs happily, surrounded by a bright, bubbly atmosphere as she celebrates Jinyoung's victory. Looking at Jinyoung and Seonwoo from afar, Miss Hangyeol grumbles to herself about how happy the young brat looks after blurting out his sweet compliment. Jinyoung arrives home after school, still wearing his uniform as he steps into the quiet hallway. Jinyoung looks up in shock, raising his voice to ask what is going on. At the dining table, Jinyoung's parents are in the middle of a tense argument because his father has to work and can't use the tickets they already bought. As his mother wonders what to do with the extra tickets, she suddenly notices her son entering the kitchen. Jinyoung greets his mother as he prepares to head out, and she warmly asks if he has had anything to eat yet. Jinyoung sheepishly says he will just grab some kimbap on his way, but his mother disapprovingly tells him that is not a proper meal. Despite trying to brush it off, Jinyoung's stomach grumbles as he silently admits to himself that he is actually starving. Sitting down at the table, Jinyoung finds the quiet, tense atmosphere of eating with his strict father to be incredibly awkward. Inside Jinyoung's mind, his imaginary coach Jason cuts into a fancy steak, lecturing Jinyoung on the importance of eating proper meals. Jinyoung's mother suddenly remembers the tickets and holds them out, asking if he wants to go see the show this weekend. She explains they are tickets to a play and encourages him to take a friend along to watch it with him. His mother sighs, expressing her disappointment that her husband's busy work schedule ruined their rare date night, while his father coughs awkwardly. Jinyoung looks down at the two play tickets in his hand, his mind immediately starting to wander. Staring intently at the tickets, Jinyoung wonders who he should invite to go along with him. Back at school, Jinyoung's long-haired classmate politely declines the invitation, claiming he feels like he's coming down with an illness. A muscular classmate flatly turns him down, explaining that he has too much club work to handle that day. Gyumin also turns down the offer, bluntly stating that watching plays really isn't his cup of tea. Jinyoung stands frozen in awkward silence, completely discouraged by his classmates' consecutive rejections. Trying to save face, Jinyoung teases Gyumin by assuming he prefers anime over theater anyway, leaving Gyumin utterly confused. Gyumin scoffs in annoyance, firmly denying the stereotype and stating that he doesn't even watch anime at all. Dismissing the conversation, Gyumin turns around and heads off to grab some food at the school snack bar. Jinyoung watches him walk away, feeling deeply embarrassed as he questions why he automatically stereotyped Gyumin as an anime fan. Inside Jinyoung's mind, a muscular Jason wisely notes how scary stereotypes can be, prompting Jinyoung to call out to him in frustration. As Miss Hangyeol walks nearby, Jason points out that Jinyoung has run out of friends to invite, asking him what his next move will be. Jin-young laughs nervously while wondering aloud who to invite, but Jason stares at him intently and demands that he be completely honest with himself. Jason pierces straight through Jin-young's defenses, asking if his true desire is to invite Sianwoo to the play. Jason continues to tease him, pointing out how Jin-young's fear of Sanwoo has transformed into a complete infatuation, which Jin-young frantically tries to deny. Jason advises that it is finally time for Jin-young to make a decision, leaving Jin-young completely bewildered as he wonders what choice his coach is talking about. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out Jin-young's name from behind, snapping him out of his inner monologue. Miss Han-gyul stands with her arms crossed, teasing Jin-young for ignoring her while walking around and talking to himself like a crazy person. She narrows her eyes suspiciously, teasingly asking Jin-young if he has a habit of making up imaginary friends to talk to. Jin-young breaks into a cold sweat of pure panic, wondering in absolute horror how his teacher managed to guess his biggest secret. Sitting beside him on a bench, Miss Han-gyul correctly guesses that he wants to invite the highly popular Sunwoo, catching Jin-young completely off guard. Jin-young stammers in shock, desperately asking his teacher how on earth she knew he was thinking about Sianwoo. Miss Han-gyul mischievously mimics his exact words from yesterday, quoting his compliment and making Jin-young shriek in utter embarrassment. Dropping her playful tone, Miss Han-gyul looks at him seriously and asks if his hesitation stems from the fear of being rejected. Jin-young quietly admits his fear, and Miss Han-gyul agrees that publicly inviting a popular girl like Sianwoo to a show is essentially asking her out on an official date. Miss Han-gyul emphasizes that such an invitation is practically a confession of his feelings, leaving Jin-young in a tense silence. As Miss Han-gyul gets up to leave, she playfully calls Jin-young a cowardly brat for letting his fear paralyze him. She flashes a confident, knowing smile and tells Jin-young that he will end up thanking her one day, leaving him thoroughly confused. Suddenly, Miss Han-gyul calls out Swanwoo's name, causing Jin-young to freeze in sheer panic. Ms. Han-gyul walks right up to Sunwoo and her friend, loudly announcing that Jin-young has something important to tell her. Jin-young's jaw drops as his eyes widen in pure, unadulterated horror at his teacher's sudden and chaotic intervention. Without any hesitation, Ms. Han-gyul blabs his secret, telling Sunwoo that Jin-young wants to take her to a play this weekend, while Jin-young screams in despair. Sunwoo's friend bursts into hysterical laughter, teasing Jin-young for using his teacher as a middleman, while a blushing Sunwoo gently tells her to stop. Miss Han-gyul confidently waves goodbye and tells Sianwoo to go talk to him, as the girls cheerfully head over to the bench. Sianwoo waves brightly and calls out his name as she approaches, while Jin-young buries his head in his hands, begging for the ground to swallow him whole. Standing right in front of him, Sianwoo leans in with a gorgeous, warm smile and directly asks if he wants to go to the play with her. Jin-young sits completely frozen on the bench, staring up at her in stunned, wide-eyed silence as his heart leaps into his throat. Miss Han-gyul's advice echoes in Jin-young's head, reminding him that inviting a girl to a show is essentially a confession. Jin-young stands alone on the bustling street, feeling completely out of place as crowds of people pass him by. A tiny, imaginary Jason sits on Jin-young's shoulder, pointing out that Jin-young has somehow ended up spending the weekend with Sunwoo. Jason lectures Jin-young for agreeing without thinking, while Jin-young nervously tries to defend his sudden decision to go with the flow. Jin-young anxiously asks Jason if his outfit looks okay, complaining about how uncomfortable his new contact lenses feel. The atmosphere turns serious as Jason tells Jin-young that his outfit is not the most important thing to worry about right now. A giant, muscular Jason stands before Jin-young and demands to know what kind of relationship Jin-young actually wants with Sunwoo. Jason crosses his arms and firmly tells Jin-young that he needs to make a decision immediately. Jason pierces straight through Jin-young's denial, asserting that Jin-young clearly has romantic feelings for Sunwoo. Jason explains that Sunwoo has likely noticed Jin-young's feelings because of the play invitation, which wouldn't be a big deal for most people. Jason points out Jin-young's deepest insecurity, asking if his hesitation comes from his extreme fear of rejection. Jason warns Jin-young that if he rushes into things, he might end up reliving the terrifying rejection from his nightmares. Jason advises Jin-young that letting go of his feelings for Sunwoo now is the only way to avoid his worst fear. Jin-young looks stunned as he realizes that letting go of his feelings is something he has successfully done before. Jin-young recalls his classic defense mechanism, viewing Sunwoo as nothing more than a harmless stone. Jason smiles mischievously and addresses Jin-young as his longtime friend. Jason explains that if Jin-young chooses to see Sunwoo as a stone again to avoid rejection, he will provide advice to fit that choice. Jin-young's train of thought is interrupted when a stunning Sunwoo approaches, looking incredibly beautiful in her date outfit. Jin-young stands completely frozen and blushing deeply, utterly mesmerized by Sunwoo's breathtaking appearance. Jason promises that as a longtime friend, he will do whatever it takes to help Jin Young through his choice. Sunwoo smiles warmly at Jin Young, leaving him with a difficult path to choose. The two of them stand facing each other on the street, leaving Jin Young to make his ultimate choice. The story explains that sharing feelings is a common source of anxiety, often leading to painful rejection during childhood. To cope with this, Jin Young adopted Jason's perfect advice to view all girls as simple stones. The narration notes that when guys and girls spend time together, feelings naturally develop, creating a strong desire to get closer. By viewing all girls as stones, Jin Young successfully blocked his desire to get closer and protected himself from rejection. A hand reaches out toward a bright, distant light as Jin Young reflects on his deep-seated fears. A young Jin Young reaches out to his father's departing figure, showing the root of his profound fear of being abandoned or rejected. Back in the present, Sunwoo giggles at Jin Young in a cafe, teasing him for drinking a mature beverage like espresso. Jin Young laughs nervously while holding his coffee cup, silently admitting that he only ordered espresso because it was the cheapest option. Sitting across from Jin Young, Sunwoo excitedly notes that she has never seen a play before and asks how much time is left. Jin Young sips his bitter espresso while reflecting deeply on Jason's words. Jin Young weighs his options, realizing that seeing Sunwoo as a stone will protect him from the painful rejection of his nightmares. However, Jin Young knows that choosing to get closer to Sunwoo means he must find the courage to overcome his trauma. Jin Young sits nervously in his chair, sweating as he doubts his own ability to overcome his deep-seated trauma. Jin Young wonders how he can break his defense mechanism when he has spent years training himself to see all girls as mere stones. Sunwoo notices his spacing out and asks him what he is thinking about, snapping him out of his deep thoughts. Jin Young quickly makes up an excuse, lying that his espresso tasted so bad that it threw him off. Sunwoo narrows her eyes playfully and calls him a liar, knowing he was definitely thinking about something else. Sunwoo pouts and teases Jin Young for thinking about other things right in front of her, making Jin Young apologize in embarrassment. Sunwoo suddenly looks Jin Young in the eye and tells him that she spent 2 hours preparing for their date. A flashback shows Sunwoo sitting at her vanity, carefully applying her makeup and styling her hair. Another flashback shows Sunwoo standing in front of her mirror, trying on outfits to look perfect for him. Jin Young looks on in complete shock as Sunwoo explains how much time she invested just to meet him. Sunwoo leans in close with a captivating and slightly intense look, demanding that Jin Young focus solely on her. Jin Young sits in comical distress, realizing how rude it was to be distracted when Sunwoo worked so hard for their date. Sunwoo stands up and cheerfully declares that she will let it slide this time since he invited her to a play. Sunwoo smiles brightly and tells Jin Young it is time to go, prompting Jin Young to eagerly stand up and join her. Jin Young decides to put his worries aside for now, choosing to focus on enjoying his time with Sunwoo. Inside the theater, the lights dim and the play begins with an actress dramatically delivering Juliet's classic lines. An actor dressed in an 18th century theatrical costume dramatically yells out that his mother gave him his name. The actor points accusingly at his co-star, criticizing her intelligence for not knowing his name's origin, leaving her bewildered on stage. On stage, the dramatic performance of Romeo and Juliet continues, but in the audience, Sunwoo has fallen fast asleep while Jin Young watches with a completely bored expression. During a flashback to their date, Sunwoo excitedly points at a cute plushie inside a claw machine, prompting Jin Young to confidently offer to win it for her. Jin Young frantically plays the claw machine, complaining in frustration about spending 20,000 won as the claw repeatedly drops the toy, making Sunwoo burst into laughter. At a karaoke room, Jin Young passionately sings a classic song, and Sunwoo playfully teases him for being a terrible singer while clapping along. While eating out at a restaurant, Sunwoo sweet-temperedly offers to cut Jin Young's food for him, and Jin Young gratefully accepts. As they stroll down the street at night, Jin Young mentions Suk-young, leading Sunwoo to ask if they are particularly close. Sunwoo looks up at Jin Young with a cute, slightly curious gaze, while Jin Young smiles back at her warmly as they continue walking. The two of them walk side by side through the quiet night, enjoying each other's company as their date draws to a close. Looking over the peaceful neighborhood at night, a sense of relief washes over Jin Young as he thinks about how much fun they had. Standing outside her apartment, Sunwoo warmly thanks Jin Young for walking her home, and Jin Young sheepishly replies that it was no trouble at all. Sunwoo waves brightly and wishes him a safe trip back home, while Jin Young quietly bids her goodbye. Sunwoo stops and turns back with a puzzled look, asking if Jin Young has something on his mind, causing Jin Young to flinch in surprise. Jin Young stammers in pure panic, completely unable to form his words under her curious gaze. Jin Young silently wishes he had the courage to tell her how much he wants the two of them to spend time together like this again. He stares at her, desperately hoping that she would be willing to go out on another date with him in the future. After a long silence, Sunwoo looks at him expectantly, wondering what he is waiting to say. Jin-young chickens out at the last second, awkwardly laughing it off and telling her he'll see her at school, much to Sunwoo's surprise. Sunwoo playfully slaps his arm, teasingly complaining about how nervous he made her just to say something so mundane. With a cheerful wave, Sunwoo quickly turns around and heads inside, leaving Jin-young standing alone on the sidewalk. Jin-young stands frozen in place, looking downcast and overwhelmed by his own inability to express his true feelings. Jin-young turns to leave, his heart heavy with the unspoken thoughts he wished he could share with Sunwoo. He walks down the street as Sunwoo recedes into the background, admitting to himself that he is still deeply terrified of being rejected. Jin-young is paralyzed by the terrifying thought of Sunwoo awkwardly dismissing his invitation for another date. He tries to convince himself that keeping his distance is the correct choice to protect himself from painful emotions. Jin-young reasons that since their teacher forced the date upon them, Sunwoo might not have even wanted to spend the day with him. He contemplates using his old defense mechanism from 5 years ago to shut down his growing feelings. Jin-young resolves to emotionally detach himself and view Sunwoo as a stone before their relationship can develop any further. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out, teasingly advising him to order something other than espresso next time. Jin-young freezes in shock, turning his head back toward the voice. He's stunned to find Sunwoo standing a few feet away, looking at him with a mischievous expression. Sunwoo flashes a beautiful, playful wink and suggests he try a sweet chocolate instead. Jin-young stares at her in absolute awe, his heart racing as her warmth completely shatters his defenses. In Jin-young's mind, Coach Jason reminds him that running away from his fears is a valid way to cope, and that he will respect his choice. Jason points out that Jin-young is simply trying to repeat the same escape tactic he used 5 years ago. Jason lays out the facts, reminding Jin-young that he relied on his teacher to arrange the invitation for him. Jason lists Jin-young's passive behaviors throughout the date, highlighting his constant hesitation and fear of taking initiative. Jason asserts that Jin-young is ultimately running away because the fear of getting closer to Sunwoo is too overwhelming. He notes that Jin-young was right on the verge of forcing himself to view Sunwoo as a meaningless stone once again. Jason mockingly apologizes, claiming he is simply stating the undeniable, objective facts of the situation. He looks Jin-young dead in the eye, prepping him for a harsh, final truth. Jason bluntly labels Jin-young's cowardice as total loser behavior, dealing a heavy blow to his pride. Snapping back to reality, Jin-young makes a bold decision and steps forward, grabbing Sunwoo's hands and calling out her name. Sunwoo is caught completely off guard, gasping softly at his sudden display of boldness. Looking her in the eyes, Jin-young promises to take her to a much more engaging and interesting play next time. He explains that since she fell asleep from boredom, this next invitation serves as his official apology. Sunwoo remains frozen in stunned silence, staring up at him as the gravity of his words sinks in. Suddenly, a bright smile breaks across her face, and she lets out a joyful, genuine laugh. She beams at him warmly, admitting she had been eagerly waiting for him to finally take initiative and ask her out. Suk-young flashes a cheerful peace sign in her pink hoodie, with the text below reading, "You're the only one I can see." Jin-young and Sunwoo stand together in tense silence on the sidewalk, both lost in their own thoughts. Jin-young suddenly gasps in shock, his face flushing red as he realizes how close they are standing. Panicking, Jin-young quickly pulls his hands away and frantically apologizes for not realizing how close they were, while Sunwoo warmly assures him it is no worries. Sunwoo cheerfully points up and tells Jin-young she expects him to show her something much more fun next time, prompting Jin-young to awkwardly agree. Jin-young tells Sunwoo to get home safely as she playfully spins around to walk away, bidding him a safe trip back as well. Jin-young clutches his rapidly beating heart as he watches Sunwoo walk off into the night. Walking away, Sunwoo looks down with a slightly flushed face and a contemplative expression. Sunwoo stops and turns back to flash Jin-young a beautiful, affectionate smile as she holds her hand to her chest. The next day begins with a bright, sunny view of the neighborhood. Trying to clear his head, Jin-young works out intensely by doing pull-ups on a bar in the local park. Jin-young counts his reps as Coach Jason watches over his shoulder, reflecting on his habit of working out whenever he has too much on his mind. Jin-young recalls holding hands with Sunwoo the previous night, remembering his promise that there would be a next time. Jason praises Jin-young for making an excellent, manly choice, and Jin-young silently thanks him. Jin-young stares ahead in deep worry, wondering how he's supposed to muster the courage to approach Sunwoo. Suk-young stands behind Jin-young and counts his sets as he finishes a grueling workout on the bar. Jin-young rubs his neck in frustration, complaining that his joints always seem to hurt whenever he does pull-ups. Suk-young silently creeps up right behind him and bluntly insults him. Jin-young jumps in absolute terror, demanding to know who she is, while Suk-young simply giggles at his panic. Standing proudly in her pink hoodie and bunny-patterned pajamas, Suk-young introduces herself. Sookyung beams with a bright, flowery expression, teasingly noting how interesting it is to run into Park Jin-young there. Jin-young stares back at her blankly, slowly processing who she is. Jin-young's defense mechanism kicks in, causing him to view Sookyung as a giant bunny-eared stone, though he admits her stone shape feels familiar. Sookyung commands Jin-young to repeat the pull-ups he was just doing, brushing off his confused questions. Jin-young reluctantly agrees and pulls himself up onto the bar. Sookyung screams in sheer, unadulterated horror at Jin-young's terrible workout form. Sookyung delivers a fierce flying kick that knocks Jin-young off the bar, yelling at him for having such atrocious pull-up form. Jin-young rolls across the park floor in intense pain. Rubbing his bruised head, Jin-young demands to know why she kicked him, and Sookyung warns him that exercising with such terrible form will destroy his joints. Sookyung tells Jin-young to wait there while she quickly goes inside to change. When Jin-young protests that he needs to finish his sets and refers to her as a stone, Sookyung turns back with a terrifying glare and demands he stay put, forcing him to meekly comply. Jin-young stands alone in the park, sweating in sheer confusion over Sookyung's bizarre behavior. Coach Jason appears and thoughtfully points out that this situation is actually a massive opportunity. Jason asks Jin-young if he remembers the strategy of knowing your enemy to win 100 battles. They recall how they previously gathered information about Sunwoo from their chubby classmate, whom Jason bluntly refers to as a pig. Jason points out that while Jin-young previously wanted information to avoid falling for Sunwoo, his goal now is to get closer to her. Jin-young realizes that Jason is advising him to casually ask Sookyung for information about Sunwoo, and Jason confirms his suspicion. Jason adds that Sookyung should be much more helpful than their previous source, and Jin-young eagerly agrees. A little later, Sookyung returns to the park wearing black leggings and sneakers instead of her pajama pants. Jin-young asks her what exactly changed since she looks the same, prompting Sookyung to furiously question his eyesight. Surrounded by a background of stones, Jin-young sheepishly explains that she just looks like a stone to him, making Sookyung threaten his life in anger. Sookyung demands that Jin-young do a pull-up so she can evaluate his form, leaving Jin-young standing in silence. Jin-young hesitates before casually asking Sookyung if she is close friends with Sunwoo. Sookyung confirms she is, but immediately wonders why he is bringing Sunwoo up before suddenly putting two and two together. Sookyung directly asks Jin-young if he is interested in Sunwoo, throwing him into an immediate panic. Blushing and sweating profusely, Jin-young frantically tries to laugh it off, claiming he was merely curious. Sookyung calls him ridiculous, asserting that even a passing chicken would know he is clearly in love with Sunwoo. Pointing to a literal rooster nearby, Sookyung jokes that even the chicken is nodding in agreement, leaving Jin-young wondering if it escaped from a farm. Sookyung gets serious, warning Jin-young that winning Sunwoo over will be incredibly difficult, making him wonder if it's due to her popularity. Sookyung rubs her chin thoughtfully and reveals that Sunwoo is actually a total mystery, leaving Jin-young completely bewildered. Sunwoo is generally friendly with everyone at school. She's very sociable. And while it's true that she hangs around me the most, but even after spending so much time with her, I still can't figure out what's going on inside her head. No matter how much we joke around or chat, she rarely talks about personal stuff. She feels like someone with a lot of secrets. Well, even so, I'm still her closest friend. Anyway, you're gonna go through some rough emotional suffering. Mysterious? That pig said something similar too. I don't really get what they mean. Is there something about her that I don't know?
Hey, just hurry up and do the pull-up. I never felt anything like that at all.
I said do it. Okay. But why are you suddenly making me do this? Are you good at exercising? Ha, I guess I do look kind of weak to you, huh? You look like a stone, so I can't really tell. But you know,
I may not look it, but I'm pretty confident when it comes to working out.
try not to fall for me, okay? Jin-young stands in stunned silence, his eyes wide in utter disbelief. Overwhelmed by Sookyung's bold reveal, Jin-young's defense mechanism completely kicks in, reducing her image to a solid bunny-eared stone block. You do look really solid, right? Under the bold banner reading, "You're the only one I can see," Sunwoo and Sookyung sit closely on a bench, lost in their usual friendly banter. A quiet peace settles over the neighborhood park as people leisurely walk along the winding pathways. A close-up shows a hand carrying a white plastic grocery bag, rustling gently with each step. Sunwoo walks down the park path in a sporty black crop top and gray sweatpants, holding a plastic grocery bag in her hand. But you know, don't you think the PE teacher is kind of handsome? Whoa, do you like older guys or something? He's not that old, is he? I don't think he's even 30 yet. Really? But he looks a lot older. They are my classmates. But doesn't it seem like the PE teacher is interested in teacher Hangyol? Whoa, they really don't match at all. I cannot read the text you provided because it consists only of punctuation. Please provide the words you would like me to read. Sunwoo lets out a long, heavy sigh of deep frustration as she walks. Sunwoo suddenly turns her head, her attention caught by a familiar sight off in the distance. Pull your back in more and hold the grip evenly. Okay, just 3 more. Please, have mercy. Jin-young struggles through another grueling pull-up, sweating profusely as Suk-young closely monitors his technique. Watching the two of them bicker from a distance, a soft and affectionate smile spreads across Sunwoo's face. This is so fucking frustrating. Move, you bastard! Ack! So grab the bar like this. Then use your back and pull. So, is this hard for you? Is it really that hard? How is that different from what I did? Seriously. Wow. You're so cool, Suk-young. Huh? Sunwoo? Sunwoo? Suk-young, what were you doing here? Geez, Sunwoo always appears out of nowhere. Park Jin-young was doing pull-ups weirdly here, so I was teaching him. You just couldn't resist giving advice, huh? Yeah, for real. But what's with this chicken? Dunno, it was just here. And it looks kind of cute. Sunwoo is momentarily taken aback by Jin-young's proximity, her expression softening into slight surprise. Hi, Jin-young. Hi, Sunwoo. But wow, how do you even do this? Even just hanging on is tough for me. Well, that's because you have anemia, Sunwoo. What? Are you making fun of me? Sorry. Sunwoo, do you want to try too? Should I help you? Oh, sure, I'd like that. Hey, Jin-young, you count from the front. Oh, yeah, sure. All right, don't be scared and pull yourself up slowly. Even with you holding me, this is pretty hard. Sunwoo's eyes widen in complete surprise as she stares blankly ahead. Jin-young watches closely as Suk-young helps Sunwoo position herself on the pull-up bar. Jin-young continues to stare blankly, wondering what exactly is going on. Sunwoo blushes and sweats profusely as she prepares to pull herself up on the bar. What are you doing, Sunwoo? I said pull, Suk-young urges, and Sunwoo nervously replies, okay. Sunwoo lets out a strained groan as she desperately tries to lift herself up. Sunwoo looks completely shocked and dazed as she struggles to hold on. Staring intently, Jin-young wonders to himself, but seriously, what's up with the chicken? Sunwoo looks incredibly nervous and embarrassed, unable to say a word. Suddenly, Sunwoo's hands slip off the bar, sending her into an immediate panic. Gah! Sunwoo screams as she falls backward, crashing heavily onto Suk-young, who groans in pain. Jin-young stands in absolute shock as he watches the two girls pile onto the ground. What are you guys doing? Why are you like that? Jin-young asks while the girls lie on the ground in stunned silence. See, I told you it would be too much since you have anemia, Jin-young sighs, but Sunwoo protests, that's not it. Suk-young, sorry, are you okay? Sunwoo asks, while Suk-young lies flat on her back, barely able to muster a groan. Suk-young fumes silently to herself, thinking this girl was spacing out during exercise and that glasses dude isn't counting when he's supposed to. And now I'm mad, Suk-young declares with a terrifying glare, leaving Jin-young completely frozen. I'm gonna kill you both, Suk-young yells as she lifts Sunwoo effortlessly into the air, making them both scream in terror. Jin-young's desperate apology echoes through the park. I'm sorry, Suk-young. The sun begins to set over the neighborhood, casting a warm orange glow across the buildings. Sunwoo and Jin-young walk quietly side by side along the pathway as evening approaches. Whew, that was exhausting, right, Sunwoo? Jin-young remarks, but Sunwoo retorts, I didn't even do anything, so what are you talking about? I think it'd be nice to learn from Suk-young from time to time, Sunwoo suggests with a smile, while Jin-young nervously replies, I'll have to think about that one. Jin-young reflects on his strategy, thinking, come to think of it, about that if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles strategy? I didn't really learn much about Sunwoo today. But I still had fun exercising with her, so maybe that's good enough, Jin-young thinks, while Coach Jason appears in his mind to say, agreed, you can take things slowly with the plan anyway. Sunwoo, I have to go this way, Jin-young says, waving goodbye, and Sunwoo responds, oh, yeah, okay. I'll go first. See you at school tomorrow, Jin-young calls out, but when Sunwoo hesitates, he stops and asks, Jin-young turns back and asks, what is it? Do you have something to say? While Sunwoo stands in silence.
It's nothing serious. Sunwoo hesitates, leaving Jin-young looking curious.
Recalling the sight of Jin-young working out, Sunwoo slowly asks, it's just Jin-young by any chance? Looking beautiful in the sunset, Sunwoo blushes as she asks, do you like people who are good at sports? Jin-young stands completely frozen and flustered by the unexpected question. Well, I guess it's nice if someone's healthy? Why? Jin-young sheepishly answers, leaving Sunwoo staring down in silence. Sunwoo looks down with a slightly disappointed and contemplative expression. Quickly forcing a bright smile, Sunwoo says, "Oh, I see. I was just curious. I'm going now. Bye." Sunwoo calls out as she waves and runs off, while Jin-young waves back. Jin-young watches her walk away in utter confusion, wondering what was that about. Coach Jason lets out a heavy sigh, prompting Jin-young to ask, "Jason, why are you sighing?" "My friend, I cannot say I understand a woman's heart that well either, but," Jason starts dramatically. "I get the feeling that just now you gave the wrong answer," Jason explains, leaving Jin-young completely bewildered.
Which part? Jin-young asks, but Jason simply walks away, saying, "Think about it carefully on your way home." Jin-young calls after him, "Can't you just tell me?"
"When you gonna stop making dumb decisions at the most crucial moments?" Jason criticizes, while Jin-young complains, "Aren't you being a little harsh? At least tell me the reason." Meanwhile, Sunwoo is startled on her way home by the local chicken following her, screaming, "Kya, when did you start following me?"
Suk-young walks onto the school rooftop at night. "I went up to the school rooftop at night. The rooftop feels nice because it's so open."
Stretching her arms, Suk-young reflects, "The time back then was 9 p.m. I thought nobody would be around except for a few teachers, but then Suk-young suddenly freezes as she hears music floating through the night air. I suddenly started hearing the sound of a piano from somewhere," Suk-young narrates as she looks over the edge of the roof.
Most people probably know this, but usually the music room is on the very top floor of the school. I thought, who would be playing piano at this hour? But
Suk-young's eyes widen in sheer terror. Goosebumps suddenly spread all over my body. "Whoever was playing the piano was insanely good," Suk-young admits with a bright smile, thinking, "Got chills." Jin-young, Sunwoo, and their heavy-set classmates stand in the school hallway, looking tense as they listen to an eerie story. "Wait, why are you telling that story like it's some ghost story?" Jin-young asks, looking skeptical, while Sunwoo nervously responds, "Right? How scary." "Jason, are you seriously trembling right now?" Jin-young asks as Coach Jason curls up in a ball and whimpers, "I'm weak against these kinds of stories." Suk-young wonders aloud, "But seriously, who could have been playing? I can't believe our school has someone that talented." Jin-young stays silent, feeling a bead of sweat run down his face. The heavy-set classmate crosses his arms and asks, "Kang Suk-young, do you seriously not know?" Suk-young turns to him and asks, "Huh? Know what?" "About the one rumored to appear at this school? The ghost of the music room?" the classmate says, looking incredibly dramatic. "Long ago, there was a girl at this school who stayed behind in the music room every night to play the piano, but on a certain day, while she was playing the piano," the classmate narrates. "She died," the classmate declares. In shock, someone asks, "Wait, just like that? What happened?" "Ever since that day in the music room at night, even though no one is there, the sound of a piano supposedly echoes through the room," the classmate continues. Looking down solemnly, the classmate says, "In other words, Kang Suk-young, the piano sound you heard could be considered a performance by a ghost." Suk-young stands completely blank and mutters, "Eh?" while Sunwoo and Jin-young look on in stunned silence. Jin-young looks intensely deadpan, thinking to himself, "What kind of sloppy ghost story is this?" Close-up of Jin-young's eyes behind his glasses as he awkwardly mutters, Shivering nervously, Sunwoo, clutching her collar, says, "That was kind of scary," taking Jin-young by surprise. Jin-young observes her, thinking, "Sunwoo doesn't like scary stuff? She's shaking over a story like this? She's more timid than I thought." Suk-young suddenly yells, "Park Jin-young, Jung Sunwoo," as the two of them turn around in surprise. Teacher Hangil stands with her arms crossed, saying, "Perfect timing. If you're not busy, come help out in the faculty office." Jin-young and Sunwoo walk away to help as Sunwoo says, "Ah, yes, let's go, Jin-young." And Jin-young replies, "Yeah." Suk-young confronts the heavy-set classmate, asking, "Hey, pig, is that ghost story you just told actually a real rumor? I've never heard of it before." He replies, Grinning mischievously, the classmate admits, "Obviously, it was a lie. I just made it up because I wanted to see those idiots shaking in fear." Suk-young watches in disbelief as the classmate chuckles and walks away, saying, "Jung Sunwoo looked genuinely scared at least. How satisfying. Ki-hi-hi-hi." Suk-young is left standing in the hallway, looking completely dumbfounded. Annoyed by his childish prank, Suk-young mutters under her breath, "Crazy bastard." Later that evening, Jin-young and Sunwoo walk down the dimly lit hallway. Jin-young remarks, "Helping with grading was rough. Teacher Hangil sure has it hard too." And Sunwoo quietly agrees, "Yeah." Jin-young notices that Sunwoo is quietly trembling beside him and wonders what is wrong. Turning to her, Jinyoung asks, Sunwoo, are you okay? You don't look so good, causing her to startle. Sunwoo frantically waves her hands and laughs it off, saying, it's nothing, while Jinyoung watches her skeptically. Jinyoung asks, could it be because of that ghost story Pig told earlier? And Sunwoo quickly denies it, no. In a playful panic, Sunwoo punches Jinyoung, shouting, what are you talking about? Ghosts don't exist. I'm not scared at all. As Jinyoung groans, Irk. Shaken like a leaf, Sunwoo stammers, I'm not scared of a ghost that died choking on candy or whatever, prompting Jinyoung to think, you say that, but you are shaken like crazy. Suddenly, the soft, eerie melody of a piano begins to echo through the empty, dark school corridor. The two freeze in their tracks as Sunwoo gasps, what's that? And Jinyoung mutters, a piano sound? Jinyoung looks down the hall, sweating as he notes, at this hour? It sounds like it's coming from the music room. With wide, terrified eyes, Sunwoo whispers, it's just like the story we heard earlier. Don't tell me a ghost is really playing it? Jinyoung replies, come on, no way. Jinyoung reassures her, saying, there's probably just some students staying late to practice, before suddenly cutting himself off with a startled, huh? Looking down the dark hallway, they spot a creepy, pitch-black silhouette standing in the distance. The dark shadow stands still as its glowing white eyes shine brightly in the dark. Jinyoung mutters, what's that? Clinging tightly to Jinyoung's arm, Sunwoo shivers as Jinyoung wonders, there's someone still at school this late? As Sunwoo gasps in absolute panic, Jinyoung asks, Sunwoo, are you okay? Before realizing, I guess she's not okay. The creepy shadow slowly glides forward, prompting Jinyoung to say, it's coming this way. Overcome by terror, Sunwoo screams at the top of her lungs, Kya! Sunwoo bolts up the stairs in a blind panic, screaming, the ghost that died eating candy is coming for us, while Jinyoung calls after her in shock, Sunwoo?
Running up the stairs with tears in her eyes, Sunwoo cries, save me, as Jinyoung chases her, shouting, where are you going?
Jinyoung yells back to her, if you're going to run away, at least go down the stairs, as the quiet shadow watches them from the hallway. The shadow is revealed to be teacher Hungyeol in her glasses, who sighs and wonders, did they just run away after seeing me? What was that about? A ghost? Feeling a bit self-conscious in the dark corridor, teacher Hungyeol asks herself, do I really look like a ghost right now? Teacher Hungyeol pouts gloomily, feeling dejected that her students fled from her. Jinyoung frantically bursts through the double doors leading out onto the school rooftop. Jinyoung gasps in absolute shock as he looks across the rooftop. Sunwoo lies flat on her back, completely fainted from the sheer terror, as Jinyoung cries out, Sunwoo? Sunwoo lies on the ground, panting heavily as Jinyoung panics. What happened? Sunwoo gasps out, damn stairs, leading Jinyoung to realize, oh, because of your anemia? Sunwoo quickly climbs to her knees and insists, more importantly, that dark thing suddenly came toward us earlier. But Jinyoung walks closer and reassures her, it probably just looked like that because it was dark. It was most likely just a person. Sunwoo stubbornly replies, still. Jinyoung looks up at the sky, annoyed, thinking, this is all because that pig said all that weird stuff, when suddenly a musical note rings out and startles Sunwoo. As a sweet melody drifts through the cold night air, Sunwoo looks up in a daze and murmurs, the piano again. Jinyoung crosses his arms under the starry sky, wondering to himself, but seriously, who's playing the piano at this hour? This is exactly how ghost stories start for no reason. Watching Sunwoo tremble in terror, Jinyoung thinks, and Sunwoo looks really scared. I need to calm her down quickly. Suddenly, Coach Jason appears dramatically in Jinyoung's imagination dressed as a vampire, declaring, this is actually a very good situation. Jinyoung wonders, Jason? Jason wiggles his finger and explains, I mean, it's a chance to get closer to Sunwoo, while Jinyoung questions, what do you mean by a good situation? Jinyoung is suddenly startled as a hand unexpectedly grabs hold of his arm. Clinging tightly to his sleeve, Sunwoo looks up at Jinyoung with teary, frightened eyes and whimpers, this is so scary. Blushing slightly at the close physical contact, Jinyoung thinks to himself, that's where the so-called, as the two stand close together on the moonlit rooftop, the narrator explains that this is where the suspension bridge effect comes into play. Looking down at Sunwoo, Jinyoung thinks, I've heard of it before. The narrator explains, it is a psychological phenomenon where you start feeling affection for the person you're with in a dangerous situation. However, Jinyoung quickly realizes that relying on this effect is impossible, considering the piano music they are hearing is way too cheerful and upbeat. Jinyoung notices a shift in her posture and thinks, Sunwoo's expression has relaxed too. I guess she's not scared anymore. Sunwoo excitedly turns to him and says, that ghost is actually really good at piano, right? Jinyoung sweat drops and replies, yeah, it really is. Listening intently to the melody, Sunwoo remarks, it's in 3/4 rhythm. It's a waltz. Surprised, Jin Young asks, "Oh, this is a waltz? How do you know that so well?" Sunwoo explains with a smile, "I took ballroom dance classes when I was little," prompting Jin Young to reply, "Oh, really?" Sunwoo recalls her childhood, explaining, "Gyumin and I went together when we were in kindergarten. I used to throw a fit because I didn't want him as my partner." She remembers yelling, "Hey, I hate it even more than you do," while Gyumin complained to the teacher. Sunwoo adds, knowing Gyumin, he probably started the fight first. Remembering her childhood self drawing in class, Sunwoo explains why she stopped. "Nah, I enjoyed art classes more, so I quit. And now there's also my anemia." Sunwoo cheerfully dances on the rooftop, saying, "By the way, Gyumin is actually really good at dancing. He was a dancing prodigy, a real prodigy." Jin Young is left utterly dumbfounded, reacting, "Eh?" Jin Young tries to imagine their heavyset classmate dancing in a suit, thinking, "I can't picture that at all. Is it even possible for someone with that build to dance?" Jin Young smiles and says, "Still, it must have been fun. Ballroom dancing, I mean." Sunwoo asks, "You think so?" And Jin Young replies, "Yeah, it's something completely unfamiliar to me." Sunwoo presses a finger to her chin and murmurs thoughtfully, "Though I don't remember much since it was back in kindergarten." Smiling brightly, Sunwoo looks up and says, "Well, since the ghost is kind enough to play piano for us." Sunwoo suddenly turns to him with a smile and requests, "Give me your hand." Jin Young is startled and asks, "Huh?" Jin Young asks, "Why?" But Sunwoo playfully urges, "Come on, give it to me." Jin Young reluctantly agrees, "Ah, okay." Under the starry night, Sunwoo gently reaches her hand out toward Jin Young's open palm. She takes his hand in her own, guiding him gently as she says, "That's it." As they prepare to take their first step, Sunwoo smiles and says, "Now for the next step," while Jin Young mutters nervously, Suddenly, Jin Young steps directly on Sunwoo's foot, causing her to scream in agonizing pain. "Ah!" Sunwoo clutches her foot in pain, crying out, "Ah, shit!" as Jin Young frantically apologizes, shouting, "Sunwoo, I'm so sorry." Jin Young frantically asks, "Are you okay? I'm just terrible at this stuff," as Sunwoo glares at him with a dark, terrifying aura, muttering, "I still haven't fully recovered from that low kick Sukyoung gave me." Refusing to give up, Sunwoo holds out her hand once more and says, "It's okay, let's try again." Jin Young nervously agrees, Okay." Sunwoo instructs, "All right, spin around once," but Jin Young loses control, groaning, while Sunwoo gasps, "Huh?" Jin Young loses his balance completely and crashes face first onto the rooftop floor, prompting Sunwoo to cry out in shock, "Jin Young." Sunwoo bursts into uncontrollable laughter, shouting, "Pooh ha ha, you're seriously hopeless at this," while Jin Young sits up groaning, "I still haven't recovered from the broken nose Sukyoung gave me." Sunwoo stops laughing and gazes down at Jin Young on the ground, her expression softening into a warm, gentle smile. Jin Young looks up at her and asks, "Still? Want to try one more time?" Sunwoo hesitates. "Are you sure?" To which Jin Young firmly replies, "Yeah, why not?" Sunwoo smiles sweetly but threateningly warnings him, "But if you step on my foot again, I'm breaking yours too." Jin Young sweats nervously and apologizes, "I'm really sorry." Jin Young slowly gets up and says, "Since I'm bad at this, you'll have to teach me properly, Sunwoo." Sunwoo smiles and replies, "Haha, sure." Dropping down to one knee, Jin Young offers his hand like a gentleman and asks, "I'll be in your care." Sunwoo is taken aback by the dramatic gesture and whispers, "Wow." Standing tall under the crescent moon, Sunwoo smiles warmly and accepts his hand, saying, "I'll be in your care too." Jin Young blushes deeply as he looks up at Sunwoo's radiant face. Sunwoo looks down at him, smiling softly as a quiet warmth grows between them. Holding a glass of red wine, Coach Jason narrates, "The mysterious piano music heard at the school every night. No one knew who was playing it." The narrator continues, "But that mysterious melody was enough to become a ghost story for someone." Swirling his wine, Jason concludes, "But right now, for someone else," indicating the romantic connection blossoming on the rooftop. The narrator comments that the beautiful melody must have felt like a precious gift under the moonlit sky as Jin Young and Sunwoo danced together on the school rooftop. Walking away from the school building entrance at night, Jin Young says, "Come to think of it, Sunwoo," and Sunwoo replies, "Yeah?" Jin Young asks her, "Are you still doing art?" And Sunwoo happily replies, "Oh yeah, I'm still drawing," prompting Jin Young to ask in surprise, "Really?" Sweat dropping nervously, Jin Young asks, "Then could you draw a muscular macho guy with a beard for me sometime? I'll definitely pay you back for it," before muttering, Sunwoo presses her finger to her lip thoughtfully and says, "I'm not very good at drawing people, but I can try sometime," as Jin Young responds, "Thanks." Jin Young reflects to himself, "Anyway, so Sunwoo likes drawing. I didn't know." Looking through his round glasses, Jinyoung thinks to himself, I feel like there was something I wanted to do too. Sunwoo suddenly stops and calls out, oh right, Jinyoung, I need to use the restroom, leaving Jinyoung confused as he asks, huh? Jinyoung asks, will you be okay? Prompting Sunwoo to wave back and reply, huh? What do you mean? I'll be right back. Jinyoung thinks, no, that's not what I meant. Before realizing, that's strange? Jinyoung recalls how terrified Sunwoo was earlier as she ran up the stairs screaming and wonders why she is now walking into the dark school by herself. Jinyoung strokes his chin thoughtfully, wondering, maybe she got used to being scared? Suddenly, Coach Jason dramatically appears in Jinyoung's imagination, declaring, suspicious. Jinyoung is startled and reacts with a silent why. Jinyoung asks, what's suspicious, Jason? As the tiny coach sitting on his shoulder asks, do you remember the suspension bridge effect plan? Jinyoung replies, yeah, the one we were about to try. Coach Jason leans in and whispers, I have a theory. Maybe the suspension bridge effect plan, Jason continues, was already happening all along, as Sunwoo is shown inside the school restroom putting on lip balm. Looking at a reflection in the mirror, Sunwoo smiles confidently and says, as if ghosts exist in this world. Teacher Han-yeol opens the door to the music room and says, it's gotten too late, stop playing and go home. Teacher Han-yeol calls out Yeojin as a short, pink-haired student sits silently at the grand piano. Yeojin looks down dejectedly and whispers, ah. Yeojin mumbles, can I play just one more piece before I go, Teacher Han-yeol? But Teacher Han-yeol sighs and asks, what are you mumbling about? I can't hear a thing, causing Yeojin to squeak, ah. Yeojin whimpers, I'm sorry, as Teacher Han-yeol ushers her out, saying, all right, let's go home. The quiet late-night scene fades out, concluding the chapter on their school encounter. At school the next day, Sunwoo's classmates ask her, what do you think about being friends with everyone at school? Sunwoo smiles warmly and explains, I'm not the person involved, so I wouldn't really know. Later in class, Sunwoo sits alone at her desk, holding a pen and looking thoughtful. Sunwoo taps the pen against her lip, murmuring, Sunwoo recalls Jinyoung's awkward request from the previous night, where he asked her to draw a muscular guy with a mustache and promised to pay her back. Spinning her pen, Sunwoo sighs and thinks, that's way too broad of a request. Sunwoo makes up her mind, saying, I should go ask, as she stands up from her desk. Before she can leave, a classmate suddenly opens the classroom door and calls out, Sunwoo. Yewon and Subin walk into the classroom with Yewon waving and asking, do you have a moment? Sunwoo points at herself in surprise as her classmates approach her. Sunwoo happily claps her hands and greets them, Yewon, Subin, while they giggle, asking, what is it? What's going on? A classmate holds her smartphone in front of Sunwoo and excitedly says, look at this, as Sunwoo reacts in surprise. Yewon asks, you know how I film vlogs as a hobby and upload them to YouTube? Sunwoo, you appeared in one of them briefly last time, right? To which Sunwoo replies, did I? Pointing to the screen showing over 1.3 million views, Yewon exclaims, and then the views absolutely exploded. Yewon holds up her phone and squeals, people keep asking when you'll appear again, Sunwoo. They're going crazy. They're even asking if we're friends and everything. Yewon adds, they all say you're really pretty, prompting Sunwoo to burst into laughter, saying, poo ha ha. Sunwoo asks, then you're becoming an influencer now, Yewon? And Yewon proudly replies, yep, so here's the thing. Yewon pleads, since we're at it, let's properly film a vlog together sometime. If I start making money from it later, I'll buy you something good. As Sunwoo hesitates with a quiet,
Sunwoo smiles warmly and agrees, sure, why not?
In the hallway, Coach Jason looks intense as he declares, today's mission? Sitting on Jinyoung's shoulder, Jason continues, is to ask Sunwoo to go to the school store with you, while Jinyoung walks down the hallway muttering, Jinyoung asks, wouldn't that be way too obvious, Jason? But Coach Jason immediately snaps, nonsense. Jason lectures him, didn't you decide to approach Sunwoo? An action like this is merely the practice stage, leaving Jinyoung to sigh, I guess. Jinyoung walks ahead with determination, saying, since I've made up my mind, I just have to be brave. And Coach Jason praises him, well done, my friend. Jinyoung slides open the classroom door, nervously thinking, I'm nervous. Jinyoung pops his head in and awkwardly greets, hello. Jinyoung freezes in absolute shock as he sees Sunwoo surrounded by her classmates, with Yewon filming and saying, you should tell the viewers your name, while Sunwoo play acts, my name is a secret, and Yewon laughs, haha, so she says, I guess she's going for a mysterious image. Sunwoo and her two classmates take a playful selfie together, with one classmate declaring, the three of us are super close, while Sunwoo bursts out laughing, poo ha ha. Watching them from a distance, Jinyoung wonders, are they filming something? Before thinking to himself, Anyway, she looks busy right now. Seeing Sunwoo fully occupied with their classmates, Jinyoung decides to walk away, thinking, I'll have to come back later. Suddenly, Sunwoo notices Jinyoung walking away and gasps, reacting with a silent exclamation mark. Sunwoo watches Jinyoung's retreating figure with a quiet, thoughtful expression on her face. Jinyoung looks back in surprise as Sunwoo's classmates crowd around her to take photos, realizing his mission of going to the school store with Sunwoo is going to be difficult. The narrator notes that Jinyoung's mission could not be attempted today because Sunwoo looked far too busy, showing her sitting on the steps surrounded by her classmates while Jinyoung stands alone in the background. As the beautiful sunset glows over the apartment buildings, Jinyoung sighs in relief, murmuring, "Phew." Walking home with tiny Coach Jason sitting on his shoulder, Jinyoung reflects, it couldn't be helped. Sunwoo is extremely popular at school, to which Jason agrees, you're right. Looking at Jinyoung's back as he walks away, the coach remarks, I had no idea she had that many close friends, and Jinyoung thinks to himself, Sunwoo really is amazing. Suddenly, a voice calls out, Jinyoung, causing Jinyoung to turn around in shock as Coach Jason disappears with a loud poof sound. Sunwoo waves happily and walks toward him, teasingly asking, you're walking around talking to yourself again today? While Jinyoung exclaims in surprise, Sunwoo! Stuttering nervously, Jinyoung asks, what are you talking about? Talking to myself? And quickly denies it, saying, I wasn't doing that, while Sunwoo giggles, hee hee hee. Playfully smacking his back, Sunwoo laughs, I've seen you do it all the time, so don't play innocent, causing Jinyoung to groan, irk, before she adds, don't tell me you've made up an imaginary friend and talked to it, leaving Jinyoung sweating as he wonders, huh? How did you know? Pointing out her situation, Sunwoo says, anyway, Jinyoung, my bus fare today is, prompting Jinyoung to ask, yeah, want me to go with you? And Sunwoo happily agrees, sure. Suddenly, a voice calls out, Sunwoo, causing her to stop and turn her head in surprise. Yewon and Subin wave enthusiastically as they walk up, with Yewon calling out, perfect timing, while Sunwoo reacts with a quiet, ah. Greeted by them, Sunwoo says, hi Yewon, hi Subin, as Yewon eagerly asks, yeah, Sunwoo, are you busy? Yewon suggests, since we ran into you, let's film an after-school vlog, before stopping mid-sentence with a surprised, oh, as she spots Jinyoung. Looking back and forth between them, Yewon asks in surprise, you're with Jinyoung? While Subin hums thoughtfully, Sensing the romantic atmosphere, Subin nudges Yewon and whispers, Yewon, Yewon, at times like this we should read the room and leave. To which Yewon giggles, that's right, that's right. Waving goodbye, Yewon says, you have to film with me tomorrow, okay, Sunwoo? And Subin adds, we'll get going first, as they both say, bye. Waving back with a soft smile, Sunwoo watches them walk away as Subin asks Yewon, but Yewon, aren't we asking too much of Sunwoo? And Yewon replies, maybe a little. Suddenly, Sunwoo's expression completely freezes, her eyes widening in absolute shock and terror as she flinches nervously. Walking away, Yewon and Subin casually talk, saying, we can just buy her tteokbokki later or something, and haha, that's true, while Jinyoung watches them in silence, saying, Jinyoung looks at them with a puzzled expression and wonders, are those two close friends of Sunwoo's? Before realizing, I don't really know much about Sunwoo's relationships. Recalling past advice, Jinyoung thinks, well, Sukyoung did say she was friendly with everyone, as he glances back at Sunwoo. Turning his gaze back to Sunwoo, Jinyoung freezes in utter bewilderment and mutters, Jinyoung stares in shock at Sunwoo, whose face is covered in a dark, terrified shadow as she looks deeply troubled. Confused and worried, Jinyoung sweats nervously and asks, what? Zooming in on Jinyoung's wide, nervous eyes behind his glasses, he frantically wonders, why is Sunwoo's expression? Instantly snapping back to a cheerful, comical expression, Sunwoo pumps her fists and laughs, wow, I must be such an idiot, Jinyoung, leaving him completely bewildered as he asks, huh, why? Sunwoo holds up her blue transit card and cheerfully explains, I completely forgot that I recharged my bus card yesterday. Waving goodbye, Sunwoo walks off, saying, and I have somewhere I need to stop by. I don't think you need to go home with me today. Leaving Jinyoung behind as he awkwardly responds, oh, okay. Jinyoung watches her walk away in silence, while Sunwoo waves back and calls out, I'll head off first. Waving back hesitantly, Jinyoung sweats as he thinks something felt incredibly off about that expression Sunwoo just made. Later, Jinyoung sits on a school bench next to Gyumin, reflecting, I felt something off from Sunwoo, and that feeling is still continuing. Clenching his fist tightly around his backpack strap, Jinyoung asks himself, could this be what Gyumin was talking about? In his mind, Jinyoung visualizes a muscular man with a thick mustache sitting thoughtfully as his inner thoughts continue. Even though it was a situation that could have been brushed off casually, the expression Sunwoo made just now was extremely agitated, and then she hurriedly left the scene. The muscular mustache man looks down intensely and says there is no doubt that this is the off feeling that Pig was talking about, before asking, "What do you think, my friend?" Jin-young stands alone on the street as twilight sets in, determinedly facing the question, "Will you dig into this issue?" With a resolute look, Jin-young declares, "Yeah, if it can become a way for me to get closer to Sunwoo." Following his decision, Jin-young stands by a park bench at night, guided by the narration. Within the range of people you know, call out the person who seems closest to Sunwoo. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind, "Park Jin-young," causing Jin-young to gasp and turn around as the narration concludes and find out more. Suk-young walks up to him in casual nightwear, wearing a beige jacket, black crop top, and shorts, asking, "Why are you calling me out at night?" Smirking playfully, Suk-young teases, "Seriously, I told you to try not to fall for me," while Jin-young's thoughts focus on discovering the truth about Sunwoo. Standing face to face under the dim streetlights, the two prepare to dive a little deeper into the mystery. Suk-young checks her watch and says, "So what is this about? I have to go to my part-time job later, so make it quick." To which Jin-young asks in surprise, "Oh, Suk-young, you work nights too?" And she simply replies, "Yeah." With a serious expression, Jin-young gets straight to the point and says, "It's about Sunwoo," catching Suk-young off guard as she blinks in surprise. "Huh? Oh." Suk-young gestures dismissively and chuckles, "I thought you were asking me to teach you some exercise or something, but this is relationship advice?" While Jin-young stands in silent embarrassment as the narrator wonders, relationship advice, is it? Jin-young visualizes Coach Jason dressed up as Sherlock Holmes, holding a pipe with his arms crossed. Coach Jason says, "I figured you would obviously call that Pig," while Jin-young reflects, "Talking to Gyumin feels kind of uncomfortable," before agreeing, "I agree with that too." Sitting on a park bench at night, Suk-young turns to Jin-young and asks, "You're saying Sunwoo's expression didn't look good back then?" To which Jin-young responds with certainty, "Yeah, I'm sure of it." Jin-young recalls Sunwoo looking deeply distressed in the flashback, thinking to himself, unlike usual, she looked really worked up. I don't think she'd make that kind of face just because she didn't want to film a vlog. Jin-young looks at Suk-young and says, "Suk-young, you're close with Sunwoo, so I thought you might have had something similar happen a few times." Suk-young looks down and touches her chin thoughtfully, saying, Suk-young continues to think with her finger on her chin before saying, "I don't know if it's really similar, but there is one thing that comes to mind," prompting Jin-young to react with surprise. Suk-young smirks and asks, "Curious?" And Jin-young eagerly responds, "Yeah." Suk-young then offers, "I'll tell you if you promise not to do weird pull-ups from now on," leaving Jin-young to reluctantly agree, "Fine." In Suk-young's memory of their classroom, several students gather around a desk to blow out candles on a birthday cake. Suk-young reflects, "But others in class were blowing out candles on a cake. I think it was probably someone's birthday, but it wasn't anyone I was close with." In the flashback, a classmate calls out Sunwoo to Sunwoo and Suk-young, as Suk-young remembers how things were back then. The classmate invites them over, saying, "Come over here and have some cake too. It's Min-young's birthday today." Suk-young then looks at Sunwoo and asks, "You knew, right?" To which Sunwoo replies in surprise, "Huh? No." Sunwoo looks deeply troubled and breaks a sweat as the narration notes, Sunwoo looked troubled. Min-young, the birthday girl, looks up with sparkling, hopeful eyes as the narration continues, and the birthday girl looked expectant. Quickly forcing a cheerful smile and clapping her hands, Sunwoo laughs nervously. Sorry, I forgot." Sunwoo tries to make up for it by saying, "Min-young, I'll buy you a meal later or something," as her classmates awkwardly respond, "Huh? Happy birthday." Sunwoo then quickly pulls Suk-young away, saying, "I really need to go to the bathroom. Suk-young, come with me." And Suk-young responds, "Sure." As Suk-young walks behind Sunwoo, she thinks, "Wow, she forgot, seriously?" Meanwhile, the classmates comfort Min-young, saying, "Min-young, you always looked after Sunwoo so much, that must hurt," while Min-young laughs awkwardly, Winsome smiles. A classmate comments, "But Sunwoo does kind of keep a line between herself and others in a subtle way," causing Min-young to sigh, "I don't know anymore. I thought we were close." Suk-young overhears this from around the corner, angrily thinking, "What are they saying? Should I wreck them?" Before wondering, "I wonder if Sunwoo heard them." And when I checked Sunwoo's reaction, Suk-young glances over and sees Sunwoo standing quietly in the dark hallway, her face hidden in a shadow as she overhears the conversation. Sunwoo stands with a deeply troubled and dark look on her face as the narration explains, "She had this strange expression that I'd never seen on her before. It was probably because she heard them badmouthing her, but rather than feeling like she was holding back her anger, returning to the present on the park bench, Sookyung finishes her story by saying, "Anyway, something like that happened," and Jinyoung responds quietly, I see. Jinyoung points out that anyone would feel hurt by that. After all, she heard them saying bad things about her, but Sookyung insists, "I told you it wasn't just anger, it was different somehow." Jinyoung looks down in deep thought, sweating as he adjusts his glasses and thinks, this is complicated. Sookyung looks closely at Jinyoung with her fist held near her chest, waiting to see his reaction. Sookyung asks, Park Jinyoung, what do you think? And Jinyoung blankly asks, about what? Jinyoung clarifies, about being friendly with everyone at school, and Sookyung asks, like Sunwoo? To which Jinyoung replies, yeah. Sookyung looks down and says thoughtfully, I'm not the person in question, so I don't really know. As they sit together under the night sky, Sookyung looks up and says, but lately I keep thinking it might be a curse. Jinyoung looks at Sookyung in complete surprise and confusion, uttering, Sookyung gets up from the park bench and waves goodbye, saying, anyway, it's time for my shift, so I'm going. And Jinyoung responds, okay. Walking away into the night, Sookyung turns back and says, see, I told you winning Sunwoo over wouldn't be easy, leaving Jinyoung surprised. Sookyung smiles faintly and warns him, you're going to suffer a bit over this. Waving as she walks away, Sookyung giggles, she's just that much of a mystery, wee-hee-hee, while Jinyoung watches her leave in silence, thinking, Jinyoung stands alone in the park, questioning Sookyung's words as the narration asks, being friendly with everyone is a curse? Isn't it a good thing to be on good terms with everyone? Jinyoung tries to connect the dots between Sunwoo's distressed expression and Yumin's warning as the narration continues. What connection is there between what she just told me and Sunwoo's expression yesterday? And what was that sense of something being off that the pig mentioned? Holding his chin, Jinyoung looks completely stumped and admits, I have absolutely no idea. Jinyoung's imagination of Coach Jason as Sherlock Holmes returns, looking downcast. Jinyoung wonders, Jason? Do you think you know? And the detective coach sighs, this makes me wonder if I was always this stupid. To which Jinyoung responds, that's not true, Jason. Sherlock Jason puffs his pipe and says, this will not do, my friend, prompting Jinyoung to ask, do you have some good plan? Before Jason flatly replies, no, not that. Jinyoung gasps in surprise as the narration announces, enter overthinking mode. Jinyoung, sweating and determined, exclaims, I see. You mean I should just keep thinking about it with no plan until I figure it out? And the coach confirms, correct. Standing alone on the street as the scene fades, Jinyoung sighs. This is hard. Getting close to someone is hard. And the detective coach agrees. I agree. The story transitions to the school campus the following day, marked by the narration box, the next day. Inside the school hallway, Yewon gasps with wide, excited eyes, shouting, no way! Yewon runs over and shows her phone to Sunwoo alongside Subin, yelling, Sunwoo, look at the views! As Sunwoo asks, oh, it passed 50,000? Yewon enthusiastically replies, yeah, in just one day. This is all thanks to you being pretty, Sunwoo, while a classmate in the background grumbles, blah. Sunwoo smiles and says, it's your talent, Yewon. Don't forget me when you become an influencer. To which Yewon replies in surprise, huh? What are you talking about? Before adding excitedly, you'll have to be a regular. We're already in the same boat. Sunwoo's eyes widen in absolute shock and worry as she sweatily mutters, Looking down at them in the hallway, Sunwoo nervously chuckles, come on, what do you mean regular? But Yewon insists, it's not bad, is it? If I make money, I'll give you a cut. Sunwoo politely tries to decline, saying, I'm not doing it. I'm also kind of uncomfortable with my face becoming known. But Yewon presses on. But without you, the views won't come in. Yewon shows her phone again and says, Sunwoo, you already have a ton of Instagram followers in the first place, right? How is this any different from that? While Subin tries to intervene, saying, Hey, Yewon, stop. Sunwoo says it's too much for her. Yewon continues to plead desperately, just once, Sunwoo. While Sunwoo laughs nervously, haha, and Yewon adds, you have to row while the tide is in. Yewon gets up close to Sunwoo and begs, please, people in the comments are looking for you like crazy, while Subin sweatily tries to calm her down, muttering, stop. Sunwoo's face is shown in a tight crop as she forces an extremely uncomfortable, stressed smile, while Yewon guilt trips her by saying, if you bail on me here, I'll be seriously hurt, you know? Leaving Sunwoo to laugh weakly. Haha. With her arms crossed, Sunwoo looks directly at Yewon and says, I said I'm not doing it, firmly refusing her offer. Yewon and Subin look completely stunned and caught off guard by Sunwoo's uncharacteristically cold response. An awkward, tense silence falls over the hallway as the three of them stand in a quiet standoff. Instantly switching back to her sweet, cheerful persona, Sunwoo waves off the tension and excuses herself by saying, "My face has been puffy lately, so I look ugly. I will film with you again later when I look pretty," leaving Yewon utterly confused. Sunwoo turns her back and walks away down the school hallway, leaving Yewon and Subin watching her go in stunned silence. Staring blankly, Yewon asks, "What was that? Did she just get dead serious?" To which Subin quietly responds, "I think so." Yewon's face contorts with sudden annoyance as she mutters, "Come on." Complaining to Subin, Yewon says, "Hey Subin, did I ask her for something that hard? I don't know. It's a good offer for Sunwoo too, so there was no need to get that serious. Feels like she's overreacting a bit, right?"
Around the corner, Sunwoo stands quietly in the shadows, listening as Yewon continues, "I'm honestly kind of baffled right now," while Subin tries to placate her, saying, "Calm down, Yewon." Listening closely from her hiding spot, Sunwoo hears Yewon whisper, "There are rumors that she's kind of off too." As Subin advises, "You should just let it go." Yewon then scoffs, "Seeing her today, that definitely seems true." Sunwoo looks down with a dark and deeply troubled expression, bitterly thinking to herself, the exact same pattern again. Yewon continues to vent her frustration, saying, if she's going to refuse, she can just say it nicely. Did she really have to get that serious? She made it so fucking awkward, that young Sunwoo. Subin tries to play peacekeeper by saying, "Yewon, let it go. Sunwoo probably just snapped for a second too." But Yewon asks, "What part was there to snap over?" While Subin can only respond with a thoughtful, Jinyoung suddenly walks up to them in the hallway and blurts out, "Sunwoo?" catching both girls by surprise, while Sunwoo flinches in shock around the corner. Sunwoo's eyes widen in sheer panic and disbelief as she listens from behind the wall, startled by Jinyoung's sudden arrival. Turning around, Yewon and Subin look at Jinyoung in surprise as Yewon asks, "Huh? Park Jinyoung? What is it?" while Jinyoung stands before them in silent hesitation. Realizing his blunder, a sweating Jinyoung mentally panics, thinking, crap, since I was walking while thinking about Sunwoo, I reacted to Sunwoo's name without thinking. Quickly raising his hands and scratching the back of his head, Jinyoung nervously tries to laugh it off, stammering, "No, it's nothing, I just heard you talking about Sunwoo," leaving Yewon and Subin staring at him in complete confusion. Yewon gives him a cold, dismissive look and says, "It has nothing to do with you," so leaving Jinyoung to reply awkwardly, Yewon recalls a past memory of Sunwoo and Jinyoung walking together in the dark, standing side by side in silence. A sudden mischievous and highly suspicious look washes over Yewon's face as she looks back at Jinyoung. Leaning forward with a grin, Yewon asks, "Park Jinyoung, are you and Sunwoo a thing?" prompting Jinyoung to flail his hands in absolute panic, shouting, "What? No, it's not like that." Giving him a warning look, Yewon says, "It might be better to be careful," leaving Jinyoung looking completely lost. Leaning in close to Jinyoung's face, Yewon quietly warns him, "There are a lot of rumors that Sunwoo's kinda off." Turning to her friend, Yewon asks, "Right, Subin?" To which Subin awkwardly sighs, yeah, well," while Yewon rolls her eyes and groans, "Geez." Yewon continues to talk behind Sunwoo's back as Sunwoo listens from around the corner. "I'm just saying this because I'm worried she might be leading you on or something. Of course, I do like Sunwoo." Sunwoo's eyes narrow into a cold, hard glare as she overhears Yewon say, "But there is no harm in being careful about this stuff." Yewon continues, "Of course we believe Sunwoo is not that kind of girl, right, Subin?" As Subin nervously tries to quiet her down, whispering, Yewon." Jinyoung looks on blankly, deeply confused by her words as he repeats in his mind, "Sunwoo is off?" In Jinyoung's imagination, Yewon and Subin's faces suddenly transform into lifeless gray stone blocks with simple, hollow smiles. Jinyoung glares at the bizarre, stone-faced girls as the narration asks, "Have these stones lost their minds?" Reflecting on the concept of a perfect world, doodle illustrations appear alongside the text, "A place overflowing with unconditional love. A place where hatred and resentment do not exist, and only happiness remains. I can say with certainty that such a world cannot exist, unless perhaps heaven actually exists." A beautiful colored title card shows Jinyoung and Sunwoo walking side by side with the romantic text, "You're the only one I can see." Back in the hallway, Yewon points her finger at Jinyoung and says, "Well, anyway, there are rumors like that, so Jinyoung, you should be careful too," only to be interrupted by Jinyoung asking firmly, "What are you talking about?" Jinyoung's expression turns dead serious as he confronts Yewon directly, asking, "Who are you to suddenly start saying these weird stuff?" Both Yewon and Subin freeze in absolute shock, uttering, "Huh?" as they are taken aback by Jinyoung's sudden boldness. Standing around the corner, Sunwoo clutches her chest in surprise as she hears Jinyoung stand up for her, saying, "I really do not get you guys," while Yewon defensively asks him, "Are you close with Sunwoo?" Glaring at her, Jin-young retorts, "Are you saying that because you're close with her or what? What's your problem?" Ye-won and Subin stand completely speechless and sweating under Jin-young's intense glare, with Subin awkwardly muttering, "Ah." Sweating nervously, Ye-won forces an awkward laugh and tries to brush it off, saying, "Never mind." Clutching her collar, Sunwoo listens from around the corner as Ye-won quickly turns around and pulls Subin away, saying, "I just said it for no reason. Let's go, Subin," while Subin mutters back, "Mm-hmm." Jin-young stands alone, silently watching the two girls walk away down the empty corridor. Jin-young's mental image of Coach Jason returns. Crossing his massive arms, the coach explains, "It seems they have some bad feelings towards Sunwoo, so they are subtly talking behind her back." Coach Jason continues to advise him, "Be careful, my friend. If you get caught up in something like this, it'll just become a pain in the A." But Jin-young's resolve suddenly cuts in with a resounding, "Wait." With sudden, intense speed, Jin-young's hand reaches out and firmly grabs Ye-won's wrist to stop her from leaving. Grabbing her tightly, Jin-young demands, "Where are you going?" while Subin watches in stunned surprise. Startled and breaking into a sweat, Ye-won tries to act casual but asks, "Why did you stop talking? Didn't you have something to say to me?" Staring at her with absolute conviction, Jin-young confronts her directly, saying, "What's all this about Sunwoo being off? Are you trying to drive a wedge between us or what? No, more importantly, who do you think you are?" Sunwoo is frozen in absolute shock behind the wall, her cheeks flushing as she overhears Jin-young boldly declare, "I will decide for myself what kind of girl Sunwoo is." Ye-won looks completely terrified and helpless, staring down in distress as she tries to free her wrist from Jin-young's unbreakable grip. The scene fades to a heavy, dramatic silence as the two stand locked in the tense confrontation, while Subin looks on nervously. Walking away down the hallway, Jin-young bluntly tells the girls, "Do whatever you want. Talk behind her back, insult her, whatever," before muttering to himself, "This is just ridiculous." Standing quietly around the corner, Sunwoo watches as Jin-young walks past, her expression filled with a mix of surprise and complicated thoughts. As Jin-young stands at the top of the stairwell looking back, Sunwoo begins to walk up the steps, her back turned to us. Meanwhile, back in the hallway, Ye-won and Subin stand completely frozen, their eyes wide with utter shock at Jin-young's sudden outburst. Sweating nervously, Subin tries to calm things down by suggesting, "Right, Ye-won, let's just stop," but Ye-won cuts in with a highly sarcastic and wide-eyed, "Wow." Her eyes widening with a sudden malicious excitement, Ye-won exclaims, "They really must be dating." Subin mutters in concern, "Ye-won?" As Ye-won continues to analyze, "Otherwise their behavior doesn't make any sense, both Jung Sunwoo and Park Jin-young." A creepy, mischievous grin spreads across Ye-won's face as she mutters, "Interesting. This is interesting." Ye-won turns to her friend and asks, "Hey Subin, how much more interesting do you think things would get if we spread this rumor?" While a nervous Subin stammers, "No, as a large student runs down the hallway behind them. Leaning in with an unhinged, wide-eyed stare, Ye-won insists, "I mean, come on, those two are clearly all over each other, so we should help them out, don't you think?" Suddenly, the massive student charges down the corridor shouting, "I'm hungry," and violently collides with an unsuspecting Ye-won, sending her flying. With a loud crash, Ye-won is knocked completely off her feet, landing hard on the hallway floor. Looking completely dazed, dizzy, and hollow-eyed, Ye-won sits on the floor while Subin frantically cries out, "Ye-won?" Subin desperately shakes Ye-won, shouting, "Get a hold of yourself," before glaring at the large boy and screaming, "Hey pig, have you lost your mind?" To which he simply responds with a clueless, "Hmm?" Glancing back with light reflecting off his glasses, the large boy casually says, "Oh dear, did I run someone over? My apologies." Without showing a hint of remorse, he looks at Ye-won and asks, "But why did you not dodge?" He argues his ridiculous logic, saying, "If you stand in the middle of the hallway during lunch break, shouldn't you expect a starving person to come charging through?" Turning around to head to the cafeteria, he mutters, "Still, since today's lunch is pork cutlet, I'll let this incident slide," leaving Subin to yell in outrage, "What are you talking about? Ye-won, get up!" Subin's desperate screams for her unconscious friend echo through the empty school corridor. "Ye-won!" Outside, the sky darkens as a gentle rain begins to fall, pitter-pattering against the paved courtyard. The rain quickly intensifies into a heavy downpour, and Jin-young stands alone under the school building's entrance, looking out at the storm. Sighing at the weather, Jin-young complains, "Damn, I don't even have an umbrella," prompting tiny Coach Jason on his shoulder to advise, "Be a man and run for it." To which Jin-young reluctantly agrees, "Guess I have to." Staring blankly into the rain, Jin-young silently wonders, as Jason asks him, "What was all that about in the end?" Which prompts Jin-young to ask, "What do you mean?"
Jin-young reflects on all the strange rumors he has heard, remembering Sunwoo's overly agitated expression, the curse Suk-young talked about, and the sense that something was off Gyumin mentioned, realizing he still doesn't understand what any of it means. He tries to rationalize it, thinking maybe it was really just because, from Sunwoo's perspective, she didn't like being bothered by people she was not even close with. Rubbing his chin, Coach Jason replies, "Who knows? It could also have been because of some personal trauma. My friend, don't you also have traumas that are difficult for others to understand?" Leaving Jin-young silent. Jason shrugs and says, "That's true. Right. In any case, it looks difficult to dig any deeper into this matter." Jin-young quietly agrees with his mental coach, thinking, "You're right, Jason." Coach Jason continues his advice, saying it's not too late to ask about things like this after you get closer to Sunwoo, as Jin-young thinks, yeah, it could be something very personal. Extending his hand to catch the raindrops, Jin-young mutters, "But wow, it's raining really hard. I'm getting less and less confident about running home," just as Sunwoo emerges from the doorway behind him holding a red umbrella. Clasping her folded red umbrella to her chest, Sunwoo steps out onto the wet courtyard, her expression quiet and introspective. Sunwoo's eyes widen slightly in surprise as she spots someone standing just a few feet away in the rain. Looking at Jin-young, Sunwoo recalls his passionate defense of her in the hallway, remembering how he firmly declared, "I will decide for myself what kind of girl Sunwoo is." Clutching her umbrella tightly, Sunwoo gazes at Jin-young's back, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and hesitation. A soft, warm smile plays on Sunwoo's lips as she turns and begins to walk away, keeping her umbrella close. But after taking only a few steps, Sunwoo suddenly hesitates and halts in her tracks, her hand gripping her collar. A chilling memory of her past flashes through her mind, of faceless students walking past, whispering and laughing behind her back. She remembers the painful isolation of standing alone while groups of girls gossiped and pointed at her in the classroom. The memory of eating completely alone in a crowded cafeteria, surrounded by a sea of whispering, faceless peers, hits her hard. Shaking her head vigorously to clear away the dark, painful memories, Sunwoo tries to regain her composure. Turning back toward Jin-young, Sunwoo musters her courage and calls out his name, Jin-young, catching him completely by surprise. Holding out her red umbrella toward him, Sunwoo nervously offers, "Looks like you don't have an umbrella. Allow me to show you a bit of kindness," she stammers as her cheeks flush a bright pink, right before Jin-young enthusiastically calls out her name, "Sunwoo." Jin-young grins widely and exclaims, "Perfect timing." Stepping closer, Jin-young politely asks, "Could you share your umbrella with me, just until the bus stop?" Sunwoo flinches violently in surprise, her eyes widening as her cheeks turn even redder at his direct request. An awkward, tense silence falls between them as they stand face to face in the pouring rain, leaving Jin-young to blink in confusion and think, huh? As Sunwoo continues to stare blankly at him with massive, wide-open eyes, Jin-young nervously wonders, what's going on? Sweating slightly under her intense gaze, Jin-young wonders, why is she staring at me? She's not saying anything either. Growing increasingly self-conscious, Jin-young wonders, do I have something on my face? Before nervously stammering, Sunwoo? Looking down with a heavy heart, Sunwoo asks in a quiet voice, is something wrong? Sunwoo stands face to face with Jin-young in the pouring rain, holding her folded red umbrella as she tells him softly, "You're really handsome." Taken aback by her own sudden confession, Sunwoo's mouth hangs slightly open in surprise as she realizes what she just said. Jin-young stands completely frozen and sweating, his eyes wide behind his glasses as he exclaims in disbelief, "Eh?" Clutching her umbrella tightly, a heavily blushing Sunwoo stammers, "Thanks," while Jin-young watches her in utter confusion and mutters, Turning around to walk away under her red umbrella, Sunwoo says quietly, "Then I'll get going first," leaving a bewildered Jin-young thinking. Reaching out his hand as she walks away, Jin-young calls out after her in confusion, "Hey, Sunwoo, what about the umbrella?" Sunwoo silently walks away down the wet pavement towards the school gates, leaving a tense, awkward silence between them. Staring after her in disbelief, a sweating Jin-young wonders to himself, is she not going to share it with me? Standing completely alone under the school building's entrance in the pouring rain, Jin-young wonders, why? The rain eventually clears and a few days pass after that strange encounter. Spotting her old acquaintances in the hallway, Sunwoo waves happily and calls out, "Hey-ho, guys," though she no longer hangs out with the girls she filmed the vlog with. The girls from the vlog watch her go in disbelief, with one whispering, "TF, why is she greeting us?" while the other replies, "Right?" Jin-young, observing them, admits to himself that he wanted to tell Sunwoo they were gossiping behind her back, but he held back to avoid making the situation worse. Watching Sunwoo walk down the corridor with Suk-young, Jin-young resolves that he needs to get closer to Sunwoo first to find out what is really going on.
Coach Jason appears in Jin Young's mind, crossing his arms and advising, then hurry up and complete the mission of going to the school store with her, to which Jin Young replies, got it, Jason.
Spotting her in the hallway with Suk-young, Jin Young calls out enthusiastically, Sunwoo! Smiling brightly, Jin Young waves his hand and greets her. Hi, aren't you hungry? Jin Young confidently suggests, today's lunch is fried yellow croaker, so how about we go to the school store together? Before he can even finish his sentence, Sunwoo rapidly sweeps past him in a blur, bluntly saying, yeah, I'm hungry. Jin Young is left standing frozen in shock with his hand raised as Sunwoo walks away, leaving him to utter a confused, huh? Kong Suk-young bursts out laughing, teasing him, lol, Sunwoo seems to really love fried croaker, huh? Croaker 1, Jin Young 0, prompting an annoyed Jin Young to think, I'll fry you, Kong Suk-young, while desperately trying to convince himself that she just really wanted to eat croaker. Looking to his mental coach for reassurance, Jin Young asks, right, Jason? Only for Coach Jason to bluntly cross his arms and declare, no matter how I look at it, that was a perfect rejection, sending Jin Young into a mental panic. Rubbing his chin thoughtfully, Coach Jason analyzes the situation further, saying, still, this really is strange. Yesterday, too. Why does she keep running away in such a hurry? You didn't do anything particularly weird. Jason continues, and then there was that sudden compliment about your looks yesterday. These situations, I swear I've seen this somewhere before, recalling how Sunwoo blushed and fled in a panic right after greeting him. Jin Young awkwardly tries to laugh off Suk-young's teasing, sweat dropping as he mutters, ha ha ha, lol. Turning into a literal stone statue, Suk-young mockingly tells him, the pain of heartbreak must suck, leading Jin Young to groan, before yelling, I told you, it's not like that. Sunwoo said before that she likes fried croaker, you stone-brained idiot. To which Suk-young retorts, as if, stop coping. Standing alone in the school convenience store, Jin Young stares thoughtfully at the shelves and mutters, Holding a triangle gimbap, Jin Young sighs and thinks to himself, I don't like spicy food, but I guess I have no choice. Jin Young reflects on how Sunwoo seems to be subtly avoiding him, running away with a bright pink blush whenever he gets near. He notes that while she does greet him back, there is now a strange, awkward distance between them. Looking worriedly at his gimbap, Jin Young hopes to himself, of course it might just be my imagination, but I really hope Sunwoo isn't rejecting me. Suddenly, a girl with short brown hair approaches behind him in the store, introducing herself as Choi Yojin, age 17, as she mutters, Hellfire Tonkatsu. Yojin looks down with a deep blush, whispering to herself, my favorite. Jin Young turns his head slightly in confusion, wondering. Yejin suddenly transforms into a stone-faced figure, mumbling and muttering incoherently to herself, leaving Jin Young to sweat drop and wonder, what's with this stone? She keeps mumbling something. Asking his mental coach for assistance, Jin Young thinks, can you tell what she's saying, Jason? Only for Coach Jason to dryly respond, only if you get a hearing aid, which Jin Young quietly agrees with. Looking back over his shoulder as Yojin continues to mumble, Jin Young wonders, does she need something from me? Deciding to walk away, Jin Young rationalizes, if it's urgent, she'll come talk to me herself, as he heads out, leaving Yojin to look up in surprise. Yojin stares after him with a wide-eyed, flustered expression, thinking, that look in his eyes just now. Later in the hallway, Yojin's stone-faced form suddenly leans far out from behind a classroom doorframe to watch Jin Young. Jin Young turns his head slightly, sensing a strange presence behind him. A muscular classmate in a tight gym shirt approaches Jin Young, asking, Jin Young, want to play soccer during lunch later? While Jin Young thinks to himself, I can feel someone staring at me, as Yojin peeks from around the corner. Glancing back at the corner, Jin Young recognizes her and wonders, isn't she the girl from the store earlier? Why is she staring at me? Jin Young agrees to play soccer with his classmate, saying, soccer sounds good, see you at lunch, while silently deciding, if she needs something, she'll come over herself. Let's not think about it. During lunch, Jin Young runs across the soccer field in a black t-shirt while his classmates call out, pass, pass, and Yojin quietly watches him from behind a pillar. Later, Suk-young sits with Jin Young on an outdoor bench, asking, hey, do you like jogging? Really? Want to run with me every morning? As Yojin continues to spy on them from behind a wooden column. While Jin Young helps a female teacher carry a massive stack of papers down the hallway, the teacher praises him, saying, you're strong, Park Jin Young, while Yojin watches him with a dark, intense glare from the distance. Looking extremely annoyed and sweat-dropping, Jin Young thinks to himself, but she's sticking to me way too persistently. Is she a stalker? Suddenly, as the teacher drops some papers, Jin Young drops his stack as well and yells in a panic, teacher, excuse me, I really need to poop, leaving the teacher to gross out and exclaim, ugh, gross. Clutching his stomach, Jin-young sprints down the hallway at full speed to find a restroom, leaving a completely stunned Yojin frozen in absolute shock. Startled out of her wits, Choi Yojin freezes on the spot, sweat running down her face in absolute panic as she gets cornered. Before she can run away, a firm hand grabs her school blazer by the collar, catching her completely off guard as she lets out a loud yelp, "Wah!" while Jin-young calls out, "Where do you think you're running?" Lifting her up by her collar, Jin-young demands in irritation, "What are you doing? Why do you keep following me? Are you a stalker?" leaving a whimpering Yojin to only mutter, "Ah." Flailing her arms frantically on the stairs landing, Yojin stammers, "It's a misunderstanding," to which Jin-young bluntly retorts, "What misunderstanding? And speak a little louder." Turning red with embarrassment, Yojin nervously explains, "I just have a favor to ask you, Oppa," prompting an impatient Jin-young to demand, "I told you to speak louder," while realizing to himself, "Oppa? So she's a first year." Dropping her head, Yojin remains silent, her face flushed with anxiety as she struggles to find her words. Bowing deeply and hiding her face, Yojin mutters incoherently, "I'm a first-year Choi," driving an annoyed Jin-young to mutter, seriously, use a medium volume." Trying to regain her composure, she speaks up softly, Anyway, I'm Yojin, and what I wanted to ask is," to which Jin-young attentively replies, "Yeah?" She recalls their encounter from earlier, thinking back to how Jin-young looked over his shoulder at her in the school convenience store. Looking him straight in the eyes, Yojin asks directly, "You looked at me like I was a bug, didn't you?" Taken aback by her blunt question, Jin-young freezes with a nervous sweat drop, completely caught off guard. Looking sweating and wide-eyed behind his glasses, Jin-young nervously thinks to himself, no, not a bug exactly." Yojin continues with a blush, "But I realized something after stalking you all day today," prompting a bewildered Jin-young to ask, "So you admit you were stalking me?" Scratching his head awkwardly, Jin-young tries to explain himself as Yojin mutters, "You look at most people like they're bugs," leaving him to stammer, "No, that's," and sigh heavily, "Ah." Standing face to face on the quiet staircase landing, Jin-young asks, "So, what does that have to do with your favor?" To which Yojin simply replies, "It's simple." Smiling with a sudden spark of confidence, Yojin requests, "After school, please come to the music room and listen to my original song." Jin-young repeats in surprise, "Original song?" while she nods, "Yes, I play music." Getting intimately close to him, Yojin makes a bizarre and highly specific request. "While I'm performing, please look at me like you're looking at a bug." Staring in sheer disbelief behind his large round glasses, Jin-young can only blink and utter a confused, "Huh?" while Yojin reassures him, "It's okay." Holding a finger to her blushing cheek, Yojin smiles dreamily and confesses, "I actually like it, that kind of gaze." In Jin-young's mind, Coach Jason's sweat drops and blunt talks, "So she's just a crazy bi," prompting Jin-young to mentally scream, "Jason, that's going a bit too far." Suddenly, Coach Jason strikes a dramatic Freddie Mercury pose in a yellow jacket, belting out a passionate tune as text flashes, "You're the only one I can see." Back in reality, a bewildered Jin-young repeats her request in utter disbelief. "You want me to look at you like you're a bug?" Pointing his finger directly at her, Jin-young nervously hesitates, saying, "Yojin, you know." Adjusting his glasses, Jin-young points a deadpan finger at her and declares bluntly, "You're kind of a pervert." Yojin simply smiles peacefully in response, completely unfazed by his blunt accusation. Turning to face him, Yojin calmly explains, "I suppose I phrased it in a misleading way." Jin-young sighs, "Obviously, I respect your preferences, but..." Yojin asks again, "Anyway, will you listen to my original composition?" Prompting Jin-young to thoughtfully agree, "An original song, huh? Yeah, I don't mind." Later that evening, they sit in the empty school music room. As Yojin sits quietly on the piano bench, Jin-young notes, "There's something I'm curious about," and she softly asks, "What is it?" Before Jin-young points out, "Your voice got quiet again." Sitting comfortably on a classroom chair next to her, Jin-young asks, "Do you stay at school every night to play the piano?" As Yojin mutters softly, "Ah." Looking at Jin-young from her seat at the grand piano, Yojin replies, "Yes, that's right," leading Jin-young to thoughtfully remark, "I see, so it was you." Yojin listens in surprise as Jin-young mentions she was known as the ghost of the music room, causing her to blink and ask, "Huh? What's that?" Before Jin-young clarifies, "It's just some ghost story." Folding his arms, Jin-young suddenly forces a terrifyingly stern, glaring face with a dark aura, asking, "Anyway, you asked me to look at you like a bug, right? Like this?" Prompting a panicked Yojin to plead, "No, please relax your expression." Conducting an imaginary orchestra in Jin Young's mind, Coach Jason noticed you're looking at people like they're stones gaze to some extent, while Jin Young dryly notes, yeah, she got it pretty wrong though. Winking thoughtfully, Coach Jason conducts further and wonders, still, asking you to watch her performance with that kind of look? I wonder why. Before resolving, who knows? Jin Young maintains a cold, indifferent expression and mutters, not my problem, while Coach Jason dryly remarks, you're a cold man, my friend. Crossing his legs, Jin Young tells Yojin impatiently, anyway, hurry up and play, I'm busy. To which she softly replies, okay. Placing her fingers on the keys, Yojin begins to play the piano and sing beautifully, letting out a melodious la. Yojin plays with an expression of pure, peaceful concentration, lost in the music as she plays for her audience of one. Standing in front of her, Jin Young claps enthusiastically with a terrifying, sweat-drenched glare and a dark, intense aura, deadpanning, what a timeless masterpiece, to which a deadpan Yojin requests, please keep a straight face. Stopping her performance, Yojin looks up nervously and says, I'm sorry, I was just so nervous, to which Jin Young gently responds, that's understandable. Yojin reflects on how it has been a really long time since she last played in front of others, explaining that due to personal circumstances, she always played by herself because she didn't want people listening to her. Listening to this, Jin Young asks, so that's why you've been playing the piano alone every night? Looking away with a heavy heart, Yojin quietly confesses, I'm afraid of the expectations in people's eyes. Jin Young listens intently as Yojin looks at him and says, that's why I asked you to be my audience, Oppa, because your gaze is different somehow. Looking down shyly, Yojin softly adds, I'm sorry if it was too sudden, but still. Clasping her hands tightly, Yojin looks down at the piano keys and whispers, I hope you'll listen to it properly. Jin Young watches her in silence, processing her sincere and quiet words. Turning deadpan, Jin Young admits with absolute honesty, I seriously can't hear a word you're saying, leaving a sweating Yojin to quickly apologize. I'm sorry. Looking at her with a gentle, reassuring expression, Jin Young encourages her, it's okay even if you make mistakes. Hearing his kind words, Yojin's eyes widen in absolute shock as his gentle reassurance strikes a deep chord within her. She remembers back to her past, recalling the suffocating weight of being told by her teachers, Yojin, you're definitely going to win first place, and we're all expecting great things from you. With a look of pure serenity and focus, Choi Yojin closes her eyes and plays a beautiful melody on the grand piano, her heart completely poured into each note. Her sweet voice fills the empty music room as she sings with a soft smile, experiencing a rare moment of genuine artistic freedom. Seated quietly on a classroom chair behind her, Park Jin Young listens in rapt attention, entirely focused on her mesmerizing performance. Out in the hallway, the black-haired girl and her classmate in the yellow hoodie stop in their tracks as the melodious sound of a piano and singing echoes from the music room. Smiling with admiration, the black-haired girl wonders if it's the legendary ghost of the music room, noting how beautifully she plays and sings. Curiously, the black-haired girl asks her friend why she has been carrying a sketchbook around lately, prompting her friend to offer a sneak peek at what she's been working on. Upon opening the sketchbook, the friend laughs heartily, playfully asking who the funny-looking old guy is in the drawing. The girl in the yellow hoodie explains that Jin Young actually asked her to draw it, leaving her friend to wonder why on earth you would want such a bizarre sketch. Having finished her performance, Yojin sits nervously on the piano stool and shyly introduces the song as her original untitled composition. Fidgeting with her fingers, she looks up at Jin Young anxiously and asks, what did you think? It wasn't weird, was it? Caught completely off guard by the sheer beauty of the song, Jin Young stares at her wide-eyed in absolute awe, muttering, amazing. Snapping out of his daze, Jin Young enthusiastically praises her, declaring, you're seriously talented, your singing and playing were both incredible, and to think this was an original song too. With genuine admiration, Jin Young continues to encourage her, admitting he doesn't know much about music but believes she's easily good enough to debut right now. Stunned by his unfiltered praise, Yojin freezes in absolute shock as Jin Young warmly exclaims, Yojin, you're really amazing. After a quiet pause, Yojin softly explains how strange it is, confessing that she normally finds it impossible to perform whenever anyone is watching her. She reveals that she suffers from scopophobia, an intense fear of being watched, which makes it incredibly difficult for her to perform in public or even maintain normal eye contact. Looking down at the floor, she wonders aloud, but why am I okay with your gaze, Oppa? Clutching her skirt, she looks at her hands and adds with deep gratitude, still, thanks to you, I got to perform in front of someone for the first time in 7 years. Hearing her call him Jin Young Oppa, Jin Young's eyes widen as his heart fills with surprise and empathy.
Bowing deeply and politely, Yojin expresses her heartfelt appreciation, saying, "Thank you so much for being my audience." Lifting her head, she flashes a sweet, radiant smile of pure relief and happiness, telling him, "It made me really happy." Looking closely at her gentle expression, Jin-young is deeply touched, realizing the profound impact his simple presence had on her well-being. In Jin-young's mind, Coach Jason appears as an elegant conductor, observing that while she stuttered tremendously when forced to speak loudly before, she expressed her gratitude perfectly just now. As Jin-young sits in silence reflecting on her words, Coach Jason curiously asks him why he's making such a thoughtful face. Jin-young looks at her but realizes that, like a stone statue, her baseline expression remains completely unreadable to him. Coach Jason strokes his mustache thoughtfully, pondering the complex nature of human connections and emotional healing. As the music room sign stands quiet in the school hallway, Jason concludes that it is only natural for her to feel comfortable around someone who doesn't judge her. Later, outside the school building, Jin-young asks Yojin if she's staying behind to keep practicing, and after she confirms, he bids her a warm good luck. Waving goodbye, Jin-young teasingly warns her not to stay too late or she'll spark more ghost stories, leaving a puzzled Yojin to ask what stories he's talking about as he walks away. Suddenly, a voice calls out, "Hey, Jin-young," causing him to stop in his tracks and turn around in surprise. He turns to see his black-haired classmate smiling and waving at him, happily calling out his name as she approaches. Surprised to see her, Jin-young asks what brings her over, to which she replies that she wanted to ask him a question. While Yojin quietly observes from a distance, the classmate explains that she wants to ask about the macho guy drawing, suggesting they chat while walking home together. Watching them from afar, Yojin's eyes widen slightly in quiet realization as she stares at the two of them. She recalls how Jin-young looks at most people, including her, with a cold, bug-like indifference. But as she watches them walk side by side, she notices an undeniable warmth in his eyes, realizing that when he looks at that Unnie, his gaze is entirely different. Walking away alone, Yojin calmly accepts it, thinking to herself that it's perfectly fine because the look she desires from him isn't that kind of gaze anyway. With a peaceful smile, Yojin heads home in the warm sunset glow, looking forward to their next encounter as she whispers, "See you again." In a cute post-credit scene, Yojin practices bowing and greeting Jin-young, stuttering loudly before Jin-young deadpans, Yojin, medium volume, prompting her to say a perfect, polite hello.